Well, the month is steadily wearing on. Tuesday is here with us, day number 13. Welcome aboard to the AM show. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. As always, I do this together with, you know whom, Bernice, Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Together, we're happy to serve you this morning. Now, coming up, we'll be serving you the news shortly. Right after that, we'll be joined by energy analyst Kojo Poku as he helps us review the latest stories in the papers. But then we get into our big stories, and definitely we're going to be talking about the TUC, the Trades Union Congress, and its decline to participate in government's debt exchange program, saying that will put their pension funds in jeopardy. They are asking the president to show the way by downsizing his government. But is government going to be able to cut down their afro, even as they give some people quite a bit of a haircut? We're asking, what does this mean for the government's IMF program? And can this withdrawal affect the fortunes of the debt exchange program, which is an imperative for an IMF deal? Can the nation afford the failure of the debt exchange program? We'll be discussing on these matters with our guests. But also coming up, we're going to be talking about how you should avoid drinking while driving to keep you and other road users safe. Today, we have a conversation with the Ghana Road Safety Authority. So what are the best practices, really, when it comes to safe driving and reducing the carnage on our roads this Yuletide, this Christmas season? We'll be telling you a lot more about that. Just stay with us. Later, as always, we'll give you the opportunity to share your thoughts, your comments, your assessment of the show with us via our social media stream. The hashtag is AMShow. When we activate the phone lines, pick up your phone, give us a call, because this show is all about you. Ghana 4. On that note, stay with us, because up next, I'll be serving you the news. Thank you for staying with us for the news. Let's get into our first story now. The Union of Vehicle and Assets Dealers of Ghana is threatening to use arms to scare off security operatives who have in recent days impounded vehicles at their shops and garages across the country. Members of the union are blaming IOCO and other security operatives for using coercive and brutish strategies to seize their property and allegedly auction same vehicles to their cronies. At a charged news conference, chairman of the union called on government to intervene to prevent chaos and violence at these garages.
According to the union, about 300 duly acquired vehicles of their members have so far been impounded in a Rambo style and taken to unknown locations. The union says there is no justification for the IOCO-led exercise, which is said to be supported by Interpol. They question why the state looked on for the vehicles in question to be cleared at the port, only to track and confiscate same.
Even if it has been alleged that the car has been stolen, to us, we know we are not selling such cars. The cars that we are selling were completely bought from wherever that we bought them. We ship them from wherever, from America and Canada. We clear them here in Ghana. We have all the necessary documents to support whatever that we are saying. So we are not in any way afraid that to come out to defend these issues is not something that we are scared of. But we are only sending a warning to government that, or we are only sending a signal to government that what they are doing does not help us as business people. Because when somebody like maybe a buyer is coming to buy a car from you, and this news is circulating in the system, automatically the person will be scared of. This is what we are talking about.
The union describes the raid as a deliberate ploy by government to intimidate and get them out of business.
The government is intimidating us because he said we should go and buy new cars. How many people can you buy a new car? Can you afford it? What kind of behavior is that? We don't want any situation. That is the reason why we are sending a signal to the government. He should not try it, because all the security agencies are aware about what is going on. We call DVLA, they are aware. So we don't want any situation. We are giving the government 3 days. If you didn't hear from the government, you will hear from us.
Adentina ubo operation the other police di wachi na de ombesa sa cars no. Yes no. Ye mpesa ne boys ni bewura baabia na dwuma ye de bedi omo no. Ye sene segrama ikumasefo ni amata kwade fire away because bankers e wo kroma no enya de aban ne man kwan se omo ma yesika. Omo ntiase se waji om sika na abeka chom se yokwa ba be faka no.
They've vowed to use forceful means to take back their vehicles from whoever will eventually buy same through auction.
First of all, on what basis can government even decide to sell the cars that he has taken from us? Government cannot take the vehicle from us and go on an auction to the general public. But like you are saying, we are continuing the pressure to get our cars and vehicles back before we get to where we are talking about. We are not going to wait until that time to come.
I just want to come in. If that thing happens, we will resist. We will take our cars from whoever is using the car. That thing is supposed to be out. And we are sending a signal to the government. Now they are taking the cars from DVLA and they are taking the cars from ports and everything. If the government wants that thing to be happening, we are all going to resist arrest and you see what will happen in the country. We don't want that. What kind of behavior is that?
A 2-day ultimatum has been given by the union for government to return the about 300 vehicles to prevent any escalation.
Well, the Trades Union Congress has issued a 1-week ultimatum to government to respond to their demands for an exemption of pension funds from the government's announced debt exchange program. According to organized labor, failure by government to heed to their demand and stay off the pension funds of workers will incur the wrath of the union. My colleague Samuel Kojo-Brace was at a news conference where the TUC officially stated their objection to the program and now reports.
Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Anthony Yaba, noted the decision to touch pension funds of workers is unconscionable and they will resist it.
Already pension is low. And we would have thought that our government would do everything to protect even the small pension that we have. Instead, they are introducing programs inspired by IMF to cut further pension income. And as we used to say, we no go sit down. Yes. Therefore, the Trades Union Congress and all its affiliate national unions have decided that pension funds of our members will not be part of the domestic debt exchange program.
He added it is insensitive for government to announce increment in taxes, including income tax, in such a difficult time.
In the budget, government announced various IMF-inspired measures to deal with the economic and financial crisis, some of which are clearly inappropriate and wrong. And they include the following. Number one, taxation. Government has announced increases in taxes starting from January 2023 in this current economic situation. And you know what they touched? VAT, which is indirect consumption tax, affects everybody equally, whether you are poor or you are rich. And the value-added tax rate is projected to go up by 2.5 percentage points. But if you work percentage points, it's getting to about 14% increase. They have also increased the maximum personal income tax margin from 30% to 35%. Currently, if you earn $4,000 a month, you're already in the high bracket. And they are moving you to 35%, which leaves less money in your pocket for you and your family in these current economic conditions.
The TUC wants the government to look within itself in solving the current economic challenges, and here's how.
We vehemently oppose these tax measures and challenge government to use other measures to mobilize revenue, including one, plugging the leakages in the tax system. And we know it, that there is so much going out into the drain. We also advise that they should rather improve the tax efficiency, because it costs too much to collect the taxes that we are collecting. And then we also advise that government should deal decisively with the severe infractions in the Auditor General's report. know this. We know the figures. Every year, Auditor General Council figures and amounts that did not go as they should.
Dr. Ba says workers must brace themselves for an industrial action to protect their pension funds.
We will hold another press conference in this very room at 12 p.m. on the 19th of December 2022 to update our members and all of you on the General Council decisions and the actions that will be taken in the event that government refuses to accede to our demand to exempt pension funds from the debt exchange program.
Samuel Kojo-Brace's report for JoyNews.
Now, the minority in Parliament says government must immediately save the school feeding program, which it says is failing. Minority spokesperson for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, accuses government of starving the program of funds and delaying in releasing them, even those little amounts for caterers. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante has the rest of the story.
Earlier this year, school feeding caterers embarked on an industrial action to force government to increase the school feeding grant. Many months down the line, not only has this demand not been met, caterers are being owed several months. The NDC in Parliament is worried.
Funds for the program has been irregular. As we speak, we're in the third term. And my checks from the grounds indicate that the school feeding secretariat has only paid for the first term. So second term, even though some caterers offered their services, they have not been paid. And they are in the third term. And so because of lack of funds, what is happening is that in most of the schools, if the caterer does not have the capacity to fund the program, then they will not provide the food at all.
The minority are also lamenting the poor quality of the food served school children in beneficiary schools.
Who is monitoring the program? How many people have we recruited as monitors, and how do they monitor? So because of inefficiency in the monitoring process, again, irregular funding, the program is almost collapsing. The quality as well as the quantity of the food that is supplied has been compromised. Now, if you visit any of the schools and you look at the quality of food that is served to our children, you'll be more than worried. If you should look at the quantity, you'll be angry because resources are not being provided.
The 2023 budget announced an increase in the school feeding grant. Eric Opoku says government may not even be able to pay for this.
Even the 70, are we able to pay? We are unable to pay. Now we are talking about increasing it to 120 or so. What is the guarantee that government can pay? When you look at the budget and you look at the expenditure as against revenue, government projects a revenue of 145 billion against expenditure of 227 billion. And government says that I'm going to borrow around 83 billion this year. Now we don't have access to the international capital market. So we are not going to get anything from, the international market. Now when we come locally, because of the introduction of the haircut in this budget, can government get money domestically? Who is going to lend to government?
Currently, school feeding caterers get 97 pesos to feed your children who benefit from this program. Government has announced its intention to raise this amount, and the specific details will be fleshed out as the committees of Parliament consider the various estimates and allocations that have been made to the various MDAs. But the minority are already raising concerns that not only will government be unable to fund this because of the huge deficit in the 2023 budget, but already so many caterers are owed so many months in arrears and want government to take some urgent measures. The minority say they want to rally Ghanaians to pile the pressure on government to pay particular attention to the school feeding program before it finally collapses. For JoyNews, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Now, General Secretary candidate Fifi Kwete of the NDC says he is the perfect replacement for General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia. He is set to face off a competition from the party's Director of Elections and Deputy General Secretary. Joseph Akable of our political desk now reports.
When today you are hearing Nana Akufo-Addo and the MPP going all over the country shouting free SHS, free SHS, free SHS. That is what you call all lie be lie.
Fifi Kwete was a popular voice on the NDC's Setting the Record Straight platform, but his political journey started long before that. He is one who has journeyed through the ranks of the party. He started out as chairman for the National Democratic Congress branch on the University of Ghana Legon campus. In 2005, he was elected as the party's propaganda secretary. This was the year Johnson Asiedu Nketia became NDC General Secretary. The propaganda secretary position was later rebranded to National Communications Officer, but Fifi Kwete remained the firebrand he has always been.
Finally, I want to say that the courts of the people of Ghana, under the influence of the only Supreme Court in heaven, will speak on December 7th. I repeat, the court of the people of Ghana, under the influence of the only Supreme Court of heaven, will speak on December 7th. The harder the battle, the sweeter the victory shall be. So may God help us to resist oppressors' rule with all our will and our might forevermore.
He served as Deputy Minister for Finance when the party won the 2008 elections. In 2012, he entered Parliament representing Ketu South constituency. The period also saw him serve as a Minister of State at the presidency and later taking charge of the Agriculture and Transport Ministry at some point. He left Parliament after opting not to contest in the 2020 polls.
Yeah, kind of.
After you exited Parliament?
Yeah, I do a bit of that. Something I like to do, sometimes just to go a bit into the background, watch, reflect, and recharge the batteries. And when the moment calls, I step up again.
He's back 17 years after winning his first national elections within the NDC, seeking to replace Johnson Asiedu Nketia, a man who remained at the party all the time Fifi moved in and out of government and parliament.
Yeah, let's say it this way. The reason why I'm stepping for this position is because I believe we need what you call a perfect replacement. To continue where he left off.
So some say when you do that, you're not being your own man. Is Fifi Kwete being his own man? A man of his own words. Full of your conviction and going in as a politician, believing that indeed the grassroots of the NDC believe in your capacity, a reason why you want to contest, and not because you've done an assessment, seeing the opportunities there for you. Now that Johnson Asiedu Nketia is receding, then you come into for a cool job, as someone would describe.
No, I would think that's the wrong way to look at it. So, for instance, if you have an incumbent, like we have in most democracies, so for example, let's say, for example, that Obama was an incumbent. Yes. And as long as Obama was doing a good job, there's nobody in the Democratic Party who would want to run against Obama because he was doing a good job. The same thing we have when Rawlings was an incumbent, nobody ran against Rawlings. When Prof. Mills became virtually the incumbent, it was simply a matter of, as long as he is doing a good job, why challenge him? For some of us, you must appreciate this is not something that's a personal ambition business. It's about putting yourself in a situation where you can help a group and, for that matter, present yourself to be helping your country. If it were a personal thing, which I'm obsessed about, then you can say, no matter what, I'm going to run for it. But for me, it's a question of making sure that the group does not become, should I call it, diminished by the absence or the departure of one person.
He faces stiff competition from NDC Director of Elections, Elvis Efri-Yankra, and Deputy General Secretary, Dr. Peter Boama Otukono. He, however, believes he stands tall.
I think they are worthy contenders. They've also dedicated comrades in the party. Everything in particular, myself, I've gone as far back as possible. We are very good friends as well. But this is a democratic contest, and we believe that ours is to be able to tell the party why, let's say, Fifi Kwete is a better person to be able to take us forward. I think much as all of them have great good qualities, I believe I stand taller. One, because in the first place I'm actually much more ancient in the party than all of them. I've been right here.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you've been around for a long time. So you are the big brother, if you want to describe yourself as such.
I've been right here from 1992.
And they acknowledge that?
And of course, I mean, there's no dispute about that. In 1992, I was actually the chairman of NDC on the University of Ghana campus at the time when on the uni campus of University of Ghana, you dare not show that you are an NDC person. I actually was absolutely known as virtually a lion for the party.
The biggest goal for all members of NDC will be to recapture political power in 2024. Mr. Kwete has no doubt in his mind that he can make that possible.
Again, in 2024, election is largely going to be around the economy. And of course, you need somebody who actually is a champion on the subject, who can speak to the matter. And among the contenders, I mean, clearly they do know.
But Reagan is certainly not on the table.
Reagan, you can never rule it out.
You have a suspicion.
Once you are dealing with MPP,
only time will tell who will emerge victorious over the weekend.
Now, one major challenge facing students and authorities of the WAS Senior High School is the lack of an auditorium to take care of the over 1,900 students of the school. The school assembly hall, constructed over 40 years ago for 200 students, has now been outnumbered by the maze of students at the school. Concerned about the plight of the students, Speaker of Parliament Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin himself, an old student of the school, has agreed to construct a 2,000-seater capacity auditorium for the school, whose contract has already been awarded. Headmaster of the school, Adam Idrisu Thirdman, disclosed at the launch of the 50th anniversary celebration of the school. JoyNews Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports.
WAS Senior High School has long cried for an auditorium, as the current assembly hall can only take 700 students out of a current population of 1,961 students, making it difficult for them to use for their activities. The assembly hall was originally constructed to accommodate 200 students. After several years of appeals and persuasions to the government, benevolent organizations and individuals, there seem to be light at the end of the tunnel. Speaker of Ghana's Parliament, Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, himself an old student of the school, through his social investment fund, has awarded a contract for the construction of 2,000-seater capacity auditorium. Headmaster of WAS Senior High School, Adam Idrisu Thirdman, was announcing the start of the project at the launch of the 50th anniversary celebration of the school, laced with some challenges they are grappling with.
Award of contract for the construction of a 2,000-seater capacity auditorium, facilitated by the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament through his SIF, that is Social Investment Fund. The site for this project has already been prepared, and hopefully before the end of this year, construction will commence fully.
Great WAS Secondary School was established by the government of Ghana as a co-educational second cycle institution in 1969-1970 academic year, with 70 students and 5 teachers, headed by the first headmaster, Mr. Gabriel Turi. The school has not changed much 50 years after its existence. It is still the old structures with overpopulated students.
Apart from one dormitory, which has even not been fully handed over to us, all the other dormitories are in a very deplorable state. It's a matter of concern. We also suffer intermittent water shortages. We have 2 mechanized boreholes on campus.
And on that note, we wrap the news. We're grateful for your time. Stay with us for the news review. Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Time now for us to get into the papers, and we're joined by Kojo Poku, an energy analyst and a friend of this outfit. Kojo, good morning to you.
How are you?
I'm well, oh. How about you?
This one way I've now got the title of a friend. Then I should see more, because you shouldn't be friends with benefit. You should see more better relationships.
Kojo, no agenda this morning. You know, we've been at this for years, long before this place. So, but it's good to have you.
Thank you. How is everything?
By God's grace, bit by bit.
Thank God.
The year is drawing to an end.
What's tickling your fancy this morning?
Pardon me?
What's tickling your fancy this morning?
Oh, maybe just the gift of life, strength. I've been slightly under the weather, but we're still braving, through that storm. It is well. Interesting thought. As the year ends, every year people have resolutions and all of that. I don't think it's too early to start. So let me find out from you. Looking at how the year has gone, what do you think Ghana should be looking at when it comes to resolutions? Ghana as an entity. Imagine Ghana were a company with a head. What should we be looking at? And you personally, what would be your resolutions for the coming year?
Well, I don't do resolutions, because for a very long time I've realized that resolutions are never kept. You only keep it till Easter, and after Easter you realize that it goes south.
Are you speaking for yourself? Or for...
Yes, I'm speaking for myself.
All right.
I honestly, the only resolution I was able to keep for 6 months was to exercise this year, and I think I did it for 6 months. And after 6 months, I realized that every day I give myself an excuse. But let's look at the Ghana. I think, look, there is something that everybody's been yearning for, and it's some level of activity in government, some level of leadership. I've said that we don't have leadership as we speak. There's a lot that is going wrong in this country, and the group of so-called ministers assembled by the president, everybody in this country is yearning for that to be changed. And I think one of the things that would give some revitalization and momentum going into 2023 is that the president heed that call and massively change a lot of the people that he brought in from the 2024 administration, 2017 to 2020 administration. Most of them are tired. They are out of ideas. They just don't know what else to do to basically keep the country moving forward. And we are at the crossroads. We need the momentum. I always keep saying that it's never too late to start something. And though it's as bad as it is, there's always a day, a time that things can be turned, the turning point, okay? And that turning point, when we get to that turning point and we do that U-turn, not a V-turn, you will now be able to move slowly towards the path of growth. I am hopeful that in January, he will do that for us, not for him, for us.
It's actually awkward for me, come to think of it, because in other jurisdictions, and even here in different parts of Africa, ministers aren't retained for this long at post. I mean, what you said just got me reflecting. In most places, ministers aren't kept for this long. In some instances, someone is so endowed with, institutional knowledge of a certain place, or sometimes you would even have a technocrat who ascends to that position and all of that. But in this instance, come to think of it, there are so many ministers who have been in the same spot for so long, and there's been so much talk about their work, and they still remain. Is it just me?
For 6 years, for 6 good years. I mean, some of us have not been around that long, but we've seen from the 92 Constitution till now, and it's amazing. I think, some people have been longer. I mean,
I'm not saying, I'm saying generally, like the number of people, and then staying that long.
Salome was the longest serving finance
Victor Salome
ever had. He was at that position for about 18 years. So yes, he was there longer. But the point that, the general consensus is that, look, we shouldn't. The whole thing that we keep talking about is that, and you put it rightly, that knowledge, nobody is the #1 custodian of all knowledge. We should get to the point where we need momentum. Personally, I felt that when we went for the Congress, the National Congress of the MPP,
right,
and we had a new set of leaders, that was the time that he should have basically also reshuffled his cabinet and given the whole nation and the party a lift and a boost. Now, heads are down. Everybody is basically dragging their feet, thinking that, oh, is it going to go well? But I think that the new ideas will come in when in January, hopefully, he listens to our call and reshuffle his government.
All right, let's get into some interesting stories. And if I forget to make mention of this, you bring it in. I'll start with the Daily Graphic. And yes, I'll talk about the debt exchange. But should I forget to talk about the TUC stance, please attach it to what your reflection will be on that, because the TUC is saying they are not going to comply with this debt exchange thing, that they don't feel it will inure to the benefit of their pensioners, their members who pension off, in terms of steeping their pensions into this enterprise and what the cost would be for them. And they are calling on the president to look at alternative measures and to show example by downsizing his government. On State of Play, a few days ago, sometime on Wednesday, we're talking about the government's Afro, and how we are getting, the rest of the people are getting a haircut. So what do the optics show? You can attach that to your reflection on this. Debt exchange, panacea for strong market. That's according to the finance minister, and that's the banner headline as far as the Daily Graphic is concerned. So the story says, the government's debt exchange program will help tidy up the bonds market and develop it into a world-class status, the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, has said. He has therefore urged Ghanaians and all bondholders to support the government to chart the difficult path to improve the finances of the country. Currently, there are over 60 different bonds and treasury notes with various coupons, that is interest rates and maturity periods. The maturity periods range between 2 and 15 years. 3 of the bonds have maturity periods of 12, 15, and 20 years. This means almost every month, the government has to look for money to pay interest and also pay out maturing bonds. Now, about 8 billion Ghana cedis of the debt in the bond market is owed to individuals who constitute about 5.8% of the estimated 137 billion Ghana cedis as far as domestic bonds are concerned. However, to wrap, the individual bondholders are exempted from the debt exchange program, as they can hold to maturity and also enjoy the same coupon rates. So this is what the finance minister is saying. And we know that some other entities have gone down this road. We can cite Greece, we can cite Jamaica, and Greece hasn't turned back after a while. But the pain that will come along with this, in this Fourth Republic, we saw Hippick under Kufuor, we saw before him the crisis under Rawlings, we've seen all the stages. But even when we've gone to the IMF, it's never been this far-reaching in terms of the impact on pensions and other things. This is the first time for me, correct me if I'm wrong, that I'm seeing it bite this hard. What is your take, Kojo?
Well, look, when I see this word panacea, I laugh, because when was the last time we keep hearing this panacea word? When e-levy was being introduced, and we were basically championing e-levy as the panacea to all our problems.
In other words, a cure-all, a full-scale solution, and we don't even have those.
I don't know if you've ever boarded the bus from Kumasi to Accra, and a gentleman gets on board, and he has one medicine, and that medicine can cure 1,001 things. You know, he starts off from cocoa, then he moves on to your head, your this. That one medicine would basically save all the life problems that you have. Look, I find it very unfortunate when we are touting a certain solution as if it's our fault as a nation. The Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance, as I speak to you this week, is still on the local bonds market raising money. Okay? So you are still in the bonds market raising money. But then our money is with you, and you are trying to make it look like, look, we basically not enjoying the full benefit of our investment is the solution to your problem. Now, who calls up? You know, if that's the case, and we've always known that's the case, but it's just unfortunate that when the Ministry of Finance or the ministers make it look like They are endowed with all the knowledge in the world and they do not have to listen. But as a citizen, and for somebody who read history, I know that the fundamental of democracy, of society that we live today as a country, is that there is burden sharing. We give what we have to a leader to look after us and make decisions for us. Unfortunately, that's the system that we have as a governance, as government, okay? So when we give those resources to you, and you are doing certain things, and we, the citizenry, come and tell you that, look, please stop what you're doing because it will not benefit us. Don't tell us that you are the one in government, so you do as you may, and then wait for 4 years and change us if you will. Now, you are telling us that we don't enjoy our money because we need to help you solve a mess you created, okay, so that what? Ghana will be better off for it? Ghana was better off for it if you have implemented the right policies, the policies 6 years ago. So for me, I'm very passionate about this thing where you have basically gotten to the point where your policies did not work. Apologize to Ghanaians. Look Ghanaians in the face and say, I'm sorry, I have failed. It doesn't make you a bad person, just that you have. And the borrow has led us here. So please, Ghanaians, help me. That is the word, not to be telling us about how if we do this, it will this. Yes, we all care about Ghana. But did you care about Ghana when you're making certain policies? Did you care about Ghana when you're making certain decisions? And we, civil society, told you that this will not help. As we speak, go to GMPC and look at the mess that's going on at GMPC. And we talk as civil society, and nobody listens. Now we get to a point where GMPC will get into a problem, and we all have to pick up the tab. That is why civil society is very passionate about what government does. And I have a friend who always be in my ears and tell me, Bakojo, why do you care? Just leave them do what they are doing. They're ones in government. That's the problem. If we think they are the ones in government and they do the things they do, bottom line, what happens?
And in the end, it makes sense because what is government? Government is us. We cede our power to some individual because not all of us can rule at the same time. So we are government.
So government is me and you. So when you are making those decisions and the people are crying out to say, don't do it, please don't do it. Because the bit of the TUC, but you see, but let me correct this. And last week I made this assertion on your platform.
So let me, before you get to the TUC, I know I indicated it. Let me just add this because page 13 captures something. Now, the workers have been saying they won't participate in the debt exchange program. And according to them, the 500,000 member union said workers would not be part of the program that would worsen their plight and further plunge them into unimaginable hardship on the back of everything else that we know. Now, at a press conference in Accra yesterday, the Secretary General of the TUC, Dr. Yaba, said, quote, the TUC and all our affiliates have decided that the pension funds of our members will not be a part of the debt exchange program. He said the TUC have written to the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, saying, quote, within 1 week, government should ensure that all pension funds, including SNIT funds, be exempted. If government refuses to accede to our demand, we will advise ourselves. You can go ahead, Kojo.
Well, that's the bit I don't get. I don't see where it's unfortunate that we are all having to go through this.
You don't get the fact that they feel this is going to cause undue hardship to them and that they reserve the right to participate in this or otherwise. I mean, those options are available.
No, but they are not bondholders. TUC is not a bondholder. So
right.
That's the problem. SNIT is the bondholder. TUC is not a bondholder.
I'm saying they have options. They have options.
No, but TUC, that's what I'm saying. Look, when he said his members, we all know that individuals are exempted. So his members cannot be affected. If they are talking about the pension pot, which is what they are talking about, which is with SNIT, and the tier 2 and tier 3, okay? I understand how they feel, but the bit I am confused, and I keep reiterating, is that there isn't gonna be a time when anybody will go to get their pension and their pension will not be there. That is not gonna happen. That I know 100%, okay? Because what the government is doing, and I'll repeat again today, whatever money that has been invested is not lost. The government is saying that your principal is safe. All I'm doing is that I am only restructuring how much interest I pay you and when the maturity is. The pension pot has billions of cedis in there. So between now and when people are pensioning, that pension pot is safe. That is something that I think we can't reiterate enough. Nobody is going to lose their pension as a result of this debt.
I don't think that is the point that the TUC is making. I don't think they are saying anyone is going to lose. It is the interest that they are concerned about and how it would affect them moving forward.
Yeah, but that doesn't come to them. If you are entitled to 3 million cedis, you get 3 million cedis. That's the point. So if you feel that your interest is not going to be affected, then why are you worried? Look, do you know how much billions we have in pensions? It's even trillions, cedis in our pension pot. Now,
and you say we have that, but interestingly, there have been concerns. I mean, SNIT, for example, there have been decades, so many years of people complaining about the paltry sums that are paid, and it goes back to some of these issues. And you're saying we have those billions and even trillions, and they have not. The increments are so minimal over quite a large space of time. I mean, you know those issues. So how does that factor into the conversation?
That's the conversation that we should have. I honestly think that one of the things that I'm contemplating, and that is why I'm running for this 2024 presidential thing on the MPP, one of the things that I think we should consider as a nation is to elongate the pension tenure.
Okay? From what to what? So 55 for women, 60 for men. What do you mean? Elongated how?
I think we should go the UK route, because look, everything that's happening in the UK will eventually catch up with us. People are living longer. People are pensioned at 60 and living to 85. These days, you see a lot of 82, 83-year-olds, and they're very strong. Okay, so people are pensioned at 60 and living to 85. That's 25 years on a pension. So my take, and that is what a lot of emerging markets and developed nations are doing, they are extending the 60 to maybe 65 to 69 years. Okay, we should elongate the pension. The 60 years is technically not working, and it's clear to be seen that you see a very young, vibrant man, and you wouldn't even think that the person is 60, and you go to his office and tell you he's on pension. So I think that we need to look at that, and that is why people are getting very small, because they are living longer, and if we don't do that, we will run out of the pension pot. So it is not to do with the fact that there isn't enough money in the pension pot. The pension pot is so much money in the pension pot. You can take time out and go and look at how much we have in the pension reserves. It's huge. So it's not going to affect anybody's pension. It's unfortunate government thinks that he can take 167 billion out of that pot. Okay, it's unfortunate because it's money that they took and basically gone down the drain. So I am against the policy, but I don't think the TUC stance of thinking that their pension is going to be affected is true. It's not. It's not going to be affected.
Well, they also add, quick thoughts on this, all workers must be ready to participate fully in any industrial action to protect our pension funds. Workers will no longer bear the consequences of any IMF-inspired or IMF-sponsored policies and programs. Government is responsible for its decisions, including the decision to seek an IMF bailout. They say that if things don't go their way, they're going to escalate this to the point of industrial action. Quick thoughts on that. Let's move on.
Well, I think that if I'm government, this is the best time to have that employment, the number of government employees conversation. Because if the TUC is basically threatening government that they are going to embark on a strike, it is not anybody's fault that government has not put in place policies that would increase our revenue, expand the tax net, and bring more money into the government coffers. It's not the TUC's fault. But again, the TUC and its members constitute over 50% of our entire expenditure of this country. So whatever money that you think that is being spent was spent on you. So our expenditure in this country, by large, is on workers' remuneration. So that conversation, you can't take yourself out of it because you are part of the problem. Like I said, I'll reiterate, it is not their fault that government has not put policies in place to expand the revenue and expand how much government gets into its coffers. But the expenditure of this country cannot be had without remuneration to government workers. Government is the biggest employer. So for me, If I'm government, this will be the time to bring that conversation to the fore. That, okay, this is the problem I have. I have overbloated, outnumbered. I cannot afford my wage bill. And it's the truth. From as far back as September, we've been advised as a nation to cut down on the wage bill. And nobody has done it. Okay? So if this, at this juncture, I think it will be the best time for government to come up with that conversation, the government wage bill, and find a way. Because look, in a way, to freeze employment over a period, that is a way of checking government employment into government sector. So they've frozen that. But is that enough to freeze the intake? Is it enough? No, I don't think it is. The existing number has to be looked at. Some of the suggestions out there has been that government should look at, before you look at the elongation of the retirement, you should look at maybe people that might want to do early retirement options. So government should do a one-off borrowing from whatever market that they can borrow from, or look for money to do a one-off payment to anybody who wants to take an early retirement, and then basically extend the retirement age, and then basically look at a way of cleaning up the wage bill.
All right. Earth tremor hits Accra again. That story is on page 13. Residents in parts of Accra were thrown into a state of fear and panic following 3 earth tremors that hit the capital yesterday, December the 12th. Within a space of 5 hours yesterday morning, 3 earth tremors had been recorded. The first is around 6:53 a.m., about 4 kilometers radius off Bawe. And the second around 11:43 a.m., also reported to have occurred about 10 kilometers from Bawe. And 11 minutes later, a third occurred. Although they did not last for more than a minute, the effect was strong as people felt the vibration and tried to run to safety. Of course, we also have the Ghana Geological Survey Authority, that's the GGSA, telling the Daily Graphic that field experts deployed to gather data on the tremors shortly after the occurrence recorded those that occurred in the mid-morning. So I remember listening to Midday News right here, so Joy 99.7 FM, and there was someone from, I think, Kokrobite who spoke. He was new in the area, and this had taken him by surprise. We know about those fault lines, so to speak, around the Wejagbawe area, but it appears in recent times we are getting more and more of these. What do we do?
Well, as a nation, we need to have that possibility in our planning. I think that we always thought that the Makati Hill area was earthquake-prone area. Now, within the last 2 years, this will be the second time that we've had a tremor in the country, which is very dangerous. I think that we should start planning with that. The NADMO and all the government policies should start looking at ways of educating Ghanaians in times of. There's been areas that had never had earthquakes. They started experiencing tremors, and then as time goes on, a major earthquake happened. We've known that it's possible because if you look offshore Ghana, there is a plate that just ends at the end of, I think, the offshore salt pond, okay? And that plate had a tendency to slide against each other from time to time. Whether we get the effect here or the effect is felt elsewhere is something that has been in the pipeline for some time now. That is why you always hear that the Makati Hill area is a earthquake-prone area. It's something that we need to start planning. The way we build, the way we take into education, safety, and all that. The day that it will come is giving us some warnings already. Touch wood, it doesn't happen, and touch wood is not as disastrous as it should be, or it might be, I should say. We should start planning for those things.
And that's exactly what my thinking was. From time to time, we get these things happening. They are only warning signals. And should something happen, I ask myself, in terms of how we put up our buildings, in terms of education, do people even know what you should be doing when there's an earth tremor or there's a full-scale earthquake? Do people know? Are our buildings, especially in that catchment area, are they built a certain way knowing that that place is earthquake prone? So many gaps, and I feel we're just like sitting ducks in this country in so many ways. We just wait. When disaster strikes, then we go and we're plaintive and we're praying and all of that, yet we have heads and we should plan ahead. Let's talk sports. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, of course, there's talk about Croatia locking horns with Argentina in that dramatic semis clash. How do you think this will go? So, three of the teams I wanted, I was willing to get into the semifinal, phase, did not get there. Morocco did. I was split because I love Zero, but I also wanted an African team to make the semis, which they did. But as Croatia meets Argentina, what's your projection? What do you think will happen?
Well, we have an unfinished conversation. You remember the conversation about Walker trying to say that, it's not going to be a red carpet for Mbappe. And I told you that, look, let's not get into that conversation.
So let's do this. I didn't say that. It was Walker making all the noise. But the point is, in the first half, he pretty much locked down Mbappe. He didn't allow him to operate. But in the second half, it was clear who the faster runner was. Kylian Mbappe. Clear.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, we settled it from there.
Right.
Look, the best. I think that is a good thing. Morocco is in there, and Morocco being in the semis is a good thing for Africa. Ghana had a chance to do it, but we couldn't, and then now it's in there. I think it's better that we are in there. The good thing going forward is that we need to now look at how we all support Morocco. To basically, if they can get into the finals, can you imagine what it means for Africa to be in the finals? It would be huge. I don't know if they can beat France, but look, we're all going to support them and see if they can.
Well, we don't know whether they can do that, but here's the interesting bit. We didn't think they would top their group with the likes of Belgium and the rest. Belgium's second-place team on the FIFA rankings. They did. We didn't think they would beat Spain. They did. We didn't think they could beat Portugal. They did. So I guess we can just keep hanging on, and who knows? We may not think they could beat France. They just might. We may not think they would make it to the finals. They just might. We may not think that they can win the trophy, but how amazing it would be if the Moroccans won it. Ordinarily, I would have loved it better for a West African nation, and that's my bias, to win it. But I see in this, it will set the tone for other countries to follow through, like the Cameroonian side did with Roger Miller back then, making it to the quarters for the first time. Since then, Senegal has done it, Ghana has done it, and we could have gone a step further, and we messed it up. So it is what it is. But in other stories, so President Akufo-Addo, 48 others attend second U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington. And of course, there's more talk about the domestic debt exchange. Disaster at Niata, 11 children killed in road crash. Now today, we're talking about road crashes and how to stem the carnage in our country. I would like you to share some brief thoughts on that. Why do you think we're recording so many road accidents, Kojo?
I think that these road accidents, look, let me make this point. I think over 40% of people who drive in Ghana don't know how to drive. And
over 40% of people driving in Ghana don't know how to drive.
Don't know how to drive. No, they can. When I say they don't know how to drive, they know how to operate the car. But in terms of the road safety, signage, where they have to drive and all those things, I don't think a lot of people do. And that brings me to the question, do they really go through the learning of the theory part of learning? I don't think that they do that, okay? I don't think they do that because let me give you an example. When you are in a 3-lane, and we have quite a bit of dual carriages around now, where do you think is the fast lane and what do you think is the slow lane? The slow lane is on your right and the fast lane is on your left. You see everybody drive in the fast lane, which is on the left. Even the Pragya or the big trucks or the trotro, everybody who cannot move faster, the Ubers and all those cars are in the left lane. When you ask them to move along, they start insulting you. Meanwhile, there's 3 lanes. The middle lane and the right lane are slow lanes. If you don't want to be in a hurry, be in that lane. But the left lane is the fast lane. In the UK, if you are seen hugging the fast lane, they'll give you a fine. But nobody cares. Another point, When you get to a runabout, me that I'm in the runabout, I have a right of way. You that is entering the runabout, you have to stop and give me that I'm in the runabout way to exit the runabout before you come in. In Ghana, when somebody is entering the runabout, the guy who is in the runabout will stop for the guy entering the runabout to come in. I see this every day, and I'm thinking, hold on, there's something wrong. Because clearly, some people have not learned how to drive. And that's why I said people don't know how to drive in this country. And it's because of that we have.
But for the ones at the roundabout, sometimes it's because maybe the person may see that the other driver is a bit aggressive or showing intent of moving. And if it's happened to me before, sometimes you just want to avert any collision. So you allow the other person to go before, though you have, technically, you have right of way.
The right of way, exactly my point. So the guy who is coming in, if he knows that he has to stop and only enter the runabout when the person in the runabout is clear, then that aggression will not be there. So you talk about accidents, and I'm giving you instances in the urban area. I'm not even talking about when people are overspeeding on the highway, and you see areas where there are two thick lines or one thick line. Whenever you see a thick line, it means that you can't cross over to the other side. You can only cross over to the other side when there is broken lines or there is no thick line. People are overtaken in areas where there's a thick line. And there are times when I have had a call to argue with MTTD officers when I cross over into a lane and they tell me I can't. And I'm like, look, there's no thick line to tell me I cannot do that. Okay? And there are areas where I have argued because I feel that I learned how to drive in the UK. Okay, I've driven in the US. I had a license in the US. So these are things that you study. When you see a stop sign, doesn't mean roll over, it means stop. You see a lot of people get into a junction where there's a stop sign and they don't care. They rear their head in front of you and expect you to stop so that they go. So those are the things that I think should be enforced in our roads. The signing and the theory of how we drive.
Right.
Roads, the management of these things. And it really just kicks the hell out of me when I see those things. And those are some of the causes of the accidents in this country. Because people just know how to operate the car, but don't know how to now do the road signs and the management around how we drive in traffic.
All right. I'm going to run a few stories by you, and then we can wrap the conversation with them. We have just a minute left. So the final newspaper, some of the others have been dealt with. Caprice, okay, so let me say it, Caprice. I was pronouncing the word as it, Caprice, as we say it here. Caprice robbery, 2 robbers shot dead, another arrested. And then there is the Daily Guide newspaper. Jomoro NDC case petitioner files appeal. And you know that situation, Dorcas Afotofi was said to have done the right thing by the court, but the petitioner has launched an appeal. D-Day for Ato Essien. And we know that situation. He is, whether we'll find out whether the judge, Justice Bafo, is going to go along with what state prosecutors want and allow him to pay COFAP the 90 million Ghana cedis and go, well, scot-free, as some will put it. And 10,000 Ghana cedis for NDC thugs. On Saturday, some of them engaged in nefarious activities. Gunshots were heard, and the police is on a manhunt for them. We'll wrap with Economy Times. Deloitte wants Ghana to manage debt down to 60% of GDP. So you can pick between Ato Essien, the 10K for NDC thugs, and Jomoro NDC. Quick reaction on one or two maximum, and let's go.
Well, why do you put 10,000 cedis fine on these boys when we all know who brought them to these events? Just go and arrest the people who brought them, and they will show you where these guys are. These guys didn't just magically appear at these events. Somebody brought them, okay? I've been going around the country, and I have all these heavily built men come up to me and say, Mr. Poku, we are the ones that will run with you on this campaign. Or I look at them and I shake and I said, no, you're not coming with me anywhere. Okay, so it is the sort of thing that you think you need to take to these events where it's only a democratic dispensation where people are going to express why do you need heavily built men to come into those venues. So there's no point putting 10,000 on anybody's head. Arrest the big men who brought them, and the big men will tell you where these boys are. It's very simple as that. The issue of Atuesian, I think, is unfortunate. People should be made to pay the money and still go to jail. So I don't think paying the money alone should avert him from going to jail. I honestly believe that he should be asked to pay the money and still do time in jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Kojo. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Did you give me your take on Argentina and Croatia? Which team you expect to win?
Argentina and Croatia? No, I did not. Honestly, I love Luka Modric. I love Kovacic. And I think that
how about the keeper? I think it's Livakovic or something like that. He's been amazing.
It will pay me to see Argentina go out because there's a side of me that wants Messi to actually win a cup for Argentina before he retires. Just because Zero couldn't do it, I want Messi to be able to do it. Because I know where you stand on Messi. I know where you stand on Ronaldo. You see, now you see. So the
Messi will go out. He will go out. I'm saying it here. Croatia will knock them out and go to the finals again, back to back.
I would really love Argentina to win just because of Messi. But Luka Modric is such a fantastic player. I've always admired him from Tottenham to Madrid. And I think Kovacic and those guys are doing a very fantastic job the way they shut out Brazil. So, look, it's going to be an interesting match. But we will all, at this stage, look, everybody can win. At the last four, everybody can win.
Anybody can win. Kojo, thank you so much and have a brilliant Tuesday.
Thank you. You too.
And that is how we get into sports because we're bringing you a lot of talk about exactly that. Argentina, Croatia. Which one of them will progress to the finals of Qatar 2022? More on that in sports. Stay.
Good morning and welcome to the sports segment here on the AM show. My name is Abigail Senaso. So we return to business in Qatar because the FIFA World Cup is still ongoing. So today Argentina and Croatia will clash later for a place in the grand finale of the ongoing FIFA World Cup tournament. And George Adu Jr. watched that final training of both teams and has filed this report.
It's a very packed training ground as Argentina prepare for that important game against Croatia tomorrow. Argentina are definitely hoping they can make it into another final since doing that in the year 2014. It's almost high time for heroes and no time for mistakes as Lionel Messi hopes that this will be the World Cup where he eventually gets to lay his hands on the trophy. As usual, as you expect at such a training ground today, with Lionel Messi training, there are loads of media men here, and of course everybody's here to have a bit or a piece of the world star. We'll find out exactly what happens in that game, but at the moment all players are on the pitch and are looking really good. For interesting training sessions like this, you are very interested in looking out for the big men. Lionel Messi has been looking sharp already up there, as you can see them in the background. They are preparing for that big game. We'll be telling you a lot more as it goes through, but of course they know they have a big job against the Croatian side, who have been very tricky in dealing with their opponents, and this should be a special game. Croatia have been a very difficult side to play all tournament, but have a crucial assignment on Tuesday if they are to make it back-to-back finals in the World Cup. In 2018, they lost out to France in the final in Russia and are looking to give themselves an opportunity here in Qatar. It's Argentina they play against, but given the kind of record they've had in the competition, especially knocking out the likes of Brazil, they would certainly believe that they have enough to knock out Argentina and Lionel Messi. It's going to be a tough game and they're very aware. The training session this evening at the Astralis training site has been fantastic. All the key men have looked very interested and are roaring to go in the game against Argentina in Lusail. Luka Modric, of course, leading the guns and making sure his side are very much prepared. It's going to be a special game as Croatia try to do it. They know very well what they come up against in Argentina and Lionel Messi, but they have shown a lot of belief, a lot of poise and promise, no matter how difficult it gets in the competition. George Adi Jr. reporting from Australia, where the Croatian team are getting themselves ready for that all-important game against Argentina on Tuesday at the Lusail Stadium. That semi-final game will be live on Joy 99.7 FM and also live on the Joy Prime channel. You want to look up for that.
Meanwhile, back home, Hartlepool head coach Slavko Matic has assured the club's faithful that the team will be ready for the return of the Ghana Premier League. The Phobians have played a couple of friendlies, with the recent one against the Black Galaxies where they lost 2-1. Matic is confident his side will be fully prepared with 1 week to go for the league resumption.
Generally, I'm satisfied. As your colleagues say, we don't have 4 or 5 national team players. We don't have heart of the team, but we have another heart. That is important. We must work with all players the same way, and the quality of one team exactly. I think one day showed today. Without that 4 or 5 players, we still play, I think, good football, and we must improve. We must run more. We must get more discipline. We need time for better things.
What are the things that you are supposed to improve upon? Because obviously you met a stronger opposition on paper.
Okay, it's looking good if your journalists recognize some work. We have a lot of work for all phases in the game. Also, we want more to control the game with the ball. We want more defense transition to be more closer to take the ball faster. We want also to know how to use offensive transition when we want to play high. We must press high more when we play in the middle zone. A lot of that. Free kicks, defense, offensive. But generally, I'm satisfied today.
Are signs positive ahead of the league resumption in terms of the team's preparation?
No, for us the most important next game. We prepared. Now we have time, 1 more week to prepare for next game. We're waiting to see Federation what will decide about us because we have 5 players out, and we will see. But we must be ready. That is, we must ready. We must work hard. Continue to work hard.
And it's in that light that the Ghana Football Association has announced the second transfer window of the ongoing Ghana Premier League season, and says that Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, will be the opening date for the second window and will be closed on Friday, February 10th, 2023. However, the international and domestic transfer window will be opened on Sunday, January 1st to Tuesday, January 31st. And finally, the association has made appointment to the junior national teams, that is the under 17 and under 20 national teams. Here are the full list of that. We get to see former Hartlepool head coach Abu-Baidoo is going to be the head coach of the Black Satellites, with assistance from Desmond Ofe and Salifu Fatau. And Fatau Dauda, former Ghana's international goalkeeper, is going to be the goalkeeper's trainer for the Black Satellites. Also, there's been some changes to the under-17 side as well. We'll get to see that list as well in subsequent bulletins. But okay, so here we have it. The Black Starlets will be headed by Abdul Karim Zito, with Laye Kinson, former Ghanaian international, being his assistant, and then Jacob Nete, also a former Ghanaian player, is also going to be an assistant. Then Jeffrey Asari gets to be the goalkeeper's trainer of the under-17 national team as well. That'll be all for sports this morning. My name is Abigail Senasusu.
Appropriate measures and safeguards to minimize the potential impact on the financial sector and to ensure that financial stability is preserved. Specifically, the Bank of Ghana, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the National Insurance Commission, and the National Pensions Regulatory Authority would ensure that the impact of the debt operation on your financial institution is minimized using all regulatory tools available to them. Secondly, a financial stability fund is being established by government with the help of development partners to provide liquidity support to banks, pension funds, insurance companies, fund managers, and collective investment schemes to ensure that they are able to meet their obligations to their clients as they fall due. These are difficult times, and we count on the support of all Ghanaians and the investor community to make this exercise successful. We are confident that these measures will contribute to restoring macroeconomic stability. With your understanding and support, and that of the entire investor community, we shall overcome our current difficulties. Our commitment to Ghanaians and the investor community, in line with negotiations with the IMF, is to restore macroeconomic stability in the shortest possible time and enable investors to realize the benefits of this debt exchange. The government of Ghana has been working hard to minimize the impact of the domestic debt exchange on investors holding government bonds, particularly small investors, individuals, and other vulnerable groups. In line with this, Treasury bills are completely exempted, and all holders will be paid the full value of their investments on maturity. There will be no haircut on the principal of bonds. Individual holders of bonds will also not be affected. The government recognizes that our financial institutions hold a substantial proportion of these bonds. As such, the potential impact of this exchange on the financial sector has been assessed by their respective regulators. Our domestic debt operation involves an exchange for new Ghana bonds with a coupon that steps up to 10% as soon as 2025, with zero interest in 2023, and the first interest payment in 2024, and longer average maturity for the bonds. Existing domestic bonds as of 1st December 2022 will be exchanged for a set of 4 new bonds maturing in 2027, 2029, 2032, and 2037. Predetermined allocation ratios are as follows: 17% for the short bonds, 17% for the intermediate bonds, 25% for the medium-term bonds, and 41% for the long-term bonds. The annual coupon on all these new bonds will be set, as I mentioned, at 0% in 2023, 5% in 2024, and 10% from 2025 until maturity. Coupon payments will be semi-annual. For emphasis, this domestic debt exchange program will not affect individual bondholders.
Therefore, the Trade Union Congress and all its affiliate national unions have decided that pension funds of our members will not be part of the domestic debt exchange program.
He added it is insensitive for government to announce increment in taxes, including income tax, in such a difficult time.
In the budget, government announced various IMF-inspired measures to deal with the economic and financial crisis, some of which are clearly inappropriate and wrong. And they include the following. Number one, taxation. Government has announced increases in taxes starting from January 2023 in this current economic situation. And you know what they touched? VAT, which is indirect consumption tax, affects everybody equally, whether you are poor or you are rich. And the value-added tax rate is projected to go up by 2.5 percentage points. But if you work percentage points, it's getting to about 14% increase.
And that is how we kickstart our big stories. We're focusing, of course, on the Trade Union Congress and how they are declining to participate in government's debt exchange program. You saw there Dr. Yao Ba, Secretary General of the outfit, at that presser or that engagement yesterday. So we asked, what is the way forward? What will be the implications if the TUC continues down this road, maintains its stance? How will that impact engagement with the IMF for a program? And could this withdrawal, so to speak, if the TUC remains adamant, affect the fortunes of the debt exchange program, which is an imperative, as we've come to know it, for an IMF deal? Well, we contemplate all of these issues this morning with our guests. Professor Lord Mensah is an economist at the University of Ghana Business School. We also have Bwachi Yadom Amponsa, a labor consultant, joining the conversation. But right here with me, joining the conversation, Bernice Abu-Baidoo, Lansah. Hello, Bernice.
Hello, Benjamin. How are you?
I'm okay. I'd like to find out from you. I don't know whether you followed when I interacted this morning with Kojopoku, energy analyst, but he shared his thoughts on this and felt that, it's really not going to impact them in that way. Of course, we know that the principal will not be affected. It's the interest rollover that is going to create problems. But the stance of the TUC could mean that, just imagine, the TUC is big. Their pensions are involved. SNIT and others would come into the fray. How could this, from where you say it, how problematic could it be?
Well, it all depends on how it's managed, doesn't it? I mean, we've heard from Labour complaining that they were not consulted. Could it have changed what we are seeing today if they were spoken to prior to this?
Solid point.
I want to believe so, but once again, we'll see what happens later today. We've been told that at 10 a.m., the Finance Ministry and the IMF will be organizing a press conference, giving us details on how far we've gone in our bid to get that support from the IMF. So we wait to see how all that plays into this. But let's now bring in our guests. Let me start with you, Professor Lord Mensah. Thanks once again for joining the program. This is where we are. At this point, the TUC is saying that we aren't going to back down. In fact, we are hearing there will be a possible strike if government doesn't heed what they refer to as their demand. What do you think we should be doing at this point, considering that we have reps from the IMF in town? We are going to be hearing from them later at 10 a.m. What exactly should be the way forward?
It's a matter of, respecting contracts. Bond in itself is a contract. The government meeting maybe fund managers or regulatory authorities of pensions and all those might not necessarily mean that they've met the people who are investing through these pension institutions. We need to understand that the entire economy is built on, lattice or structures of contracts, and it must be respected. Let me put it that way. I always say that this exercise that the government is calling for, which is the debt exchange program, it is an exercise that we may have to look at the benefit aspect of the exercise and look at the cost side of the exercise. I can tell you that the benefit is to free up fiscal space, on the balance sheet of the public, so that government can be relaxed in its, in its activities, making more money available for government to do other businesses. That's the benefit. But then if you look at the cost will be that, one, investors are going to have their investment or their pensions proceeds or yields deferred, over a longer period. Another thing will be that, the trust in the financial system may be lost. And so we have to work out in such a way that the cost will not outweigh the benefit. Because if the cost turns out to, outweigh the benefit, the direct consequence in the economy is going to be unbearable.
Yeah, but at this point, sorry to interject, at this point, what are you seeing if you put the two on a scale? Does it appear?
What I see is more of, creating cost, because you're going to get those at the granular level indicating that they have not been consulted. And we should understand that these institutions are just mediating on behalf of these people. And they are the majority. If you meet the front lines, that is the pension institutions and all those, you've not done enough. And I think after meeting the pension institutions and the heads and the regulatory authorities, I don't know the information or the kind of conversation that transpired. I was expecting that these institutions and then the regulatory authorities who are representing the people of Ghana will transfer the kind of discussion they had with the finance minister to the people. So that the teacher who is sitting at my village somewhere contributing his pensions will understand that, look, this is what is happening. We are all in an economic situation that is difficult. We may have to sacrifice. But my question that I ask the government is that, what is the government himself exchanging for this debt exchange? Let me put it in simple terms. What is the government himself exchanging for this debt exchange? It's about negotiations, coming to the table, allowing the people to understand that, this is an economic times that if we don't manage it carefully, you are likely to lose your pensions completely. And as a result of that, these are the proposed structures we're putting across. Maybe 0% of your pension yields next year, 5%, the following year, and then thereafter, 10% on levels, throughout, to maturity. These are the people's investment. And the people's investment means that you have a contract between you, the government, and the people. So you must respect that contract. And if you don't respect that contract, you may go ahead with the exercise. I don't know the announcement they come in to give us in your introduction. You indicated that the IMF and then the finance ministry will come out with a presser. But I can tell you that if they go ahead to do this, we're going to lose trust in the economy. And I can tell you the consequence is going to be that. At the end of the day, people will struggle to send their money to these financial institutions. And as a result of that, they may want to invest in things that they can control themselves. Maybe going into farms, going into other things that are closely. And remember, the Treasury bill is an alternative now. It's available. And I wasn't surprised yesterday they got an oversubscription of the issues that were coming up. So effectively, it tells you that the investor is gradually bringing their investment from long-term to short-term in a way to have control over that kind of investment. If the Treasury bill also fails, then they may want to sleep on their money in their houses. So effectively, we have to be careful how we go about this, exercise. But my question that I raised earlier, which I said, okay, what is the government exchanging for this debt exchange? We all know that it is an exercise that we need as an economy to have the economy on its footing again. But then the other thing is government ready to sacrifice its part? The expenditure lines that are being called out, that the government should cut expenditure in areas that are not necessary. How ready is the government, to do that? On the other hand, what is the promise or the assurance that if we go ahead with this debt exchange and we are able to free up, a space where government will not have interest obligations on bonds the next year, that is zero coupon payment next year, what would the money be used for? Would the government come into contract with these pensions, those who have contributed their pensions? Would the government come into contract with citizens and indicate how they're going to use the money prudently for Ghanaians to benefit the kind of exercise that we're going through, so that it will not be a kind of pain that we are taking now, but then at the end of the day, the benefit will not be realized, or the impact of the benefit will not be realized. And if we should go by history and how we have spent our way into, debt accumulations, for which at the end of the day, we have to end up doing debt restructuring, I can tell you that history does not support the kind of, sacrifice that the government must do. So it's about time the government comes to the round table with the citizens or trade union and then indicate to them, these are the possible consequences if we don't go through this exercise. However, I'm coming into terms with you that whatever proceeds that will be accrued from this exercise, we're going to use it for this purpose. And I can tell you that accountability, that should be a bond. It should be an agreement between the trades union and then all those who are contributing their pension, not pensions alone, investors, and to the large extent, the citizenry, that this exercise is a pain that the citizens are going to take. And out of this pain, you're going to benefit in the future. And the benefit is going to be that whatever will be accrued out of this exercise, we're going to invest it in this line, at this area, and therefore it will turn up to be a benefit to you yourself. So effectively, that is what I'm expecting. And I think, you know, we are all human beings and we understand the dynamics of every economy. I think if the government should come to the round table and such discussions should go on, possibly renegotiation on the interest payment. You know, if the government feels, okay, next year, you know, zero payment, I mean, will be too harsh for the trades union, they can negotiate and bring some rates, you know, to next year, and then the following year they continue in that manner. Prof, I believe it's a matter of, you know, coming to the round table.
Right. Let me at this point acknowledge Mr. Ken Trinibua-Kodia, Vice Chairman of the TUC. He's joined the program. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll be coming to you shortly with our questions. But let me come on this follow up with you, Prof. The TUC is basically saying, you know what, you can run your debt exchange program, but exempt our pensions from it. Can government come to that compromise? Is it a possibility, or will it affect the program largely?
Well, if you look at the Pensions Regulatory Act and the guidelines that, you know, the pensions are supposed to, pension investment are supposed to go through, you can realize that a chunk of their investments are with the government. And if government should exempt pensions, then the exercise shouldn't have gone on anyway.
Right.
So effectively, the kind of weight when it comes to the contributions to government bonds investment, the pensions are so high. And so it's a matter of, you know, negotiations and looking at how, you know, the parties involved, you know, can benefit. And then we can have, you know, this exercise going on. Right.
So I asked that question as a premise to my conversation with Mr. Trinibua-Kodia. So we've heard, I mean, in other words, Mr. Kodia, the TUC and your affiliates are asking government to rethink the debt exchange program, because asking it to exempt pension funds means then that, I mean, the program as it is now may not succeed. What is the compromise that the TUC is also willing to reach? We've heard some of the suggestions from Professor Lord Mensah, but are you at any point willing to reach any compromise with government about this?
Thank you very much, and a good morning to my colleagues on the panel. Obviously, TUC has always demonstrated its willingness to cooperate to build this country. An institution that is over 75 years old, without issues, obviously has shown that it's always ready to assist. But let's put the facts quite bare. If government fails to engage, what stopped government from the beginning? From engaging labor and say that, labor, you have this amount of money that I want to structure this way, that it obviously would have contributed. What has happened is a disregard to organized labor. It doesn't show good governance in getting this issue resolved. And we are leaders not unto ourselves, but unto members. And when you see an evident danger ahead, and the party involved is not willing to sit down with you to discuss, let you understand the issue so you contribute, obviously you have to take the stance that seeks to also protect the interest of the people you are leading.
So, Mr. Kodia, there are reports that TUC is unwilling to meet government. Just clarify that for us. We know what your stance is. Government didn't engage you prior to this announcement, but has there been any effort to discuss, to negotiate this over these terms?
As at this morning, we have not received any any invitation from the government on this issue. As of yesterday, when we had a press conference, there had not been any invitation to trade union to discuss this issue.
But my question to you is, are you willing to reach a certain compromise? As we heard from Prof, exempting the pensions from this whole debt exchange program means that it cannot run as has been announced. So are you willing to reach a certain compromise, or do you have certain terms that you are willing to go by if the pensions should be touched?
Well, we have our doubts whether exempting pension income would cause this whole debt restructuring not to run. That we have to really interrogate. The amount of pension income in this debt must be really looked at. We are always ready to talk, but let me say this. For how long must we sit down and let IMF issues always come to choke the ordinary worker? See, currently, as we speak, you know what inflation has done to our income. I mean, the workers' income. All the worker is seeking to do is to save some money now so he has some income during retirement. Government on its own is not supporting workers enough to enhance retirement income. So on our own, we are saving enough to secure our retirement income. That is the least government can do for workers. If you're not increasing salaries to commensurate the level of inflation, you are not securing the pension of the worker, and he's doing this on his own. Why do you kill him? Stab him in the heart, and also in the it's quite unacceptable.
Respectfully, Mr. Kodia, but back to my question: do you have certain terms that you are willing to agree to when it comes to pensions in relating to the debt exchange program? Is there a certain compromise you're willing to take as organized labor?
Compromise is always a good thing when parties sit down to discuss issues. When parties are not sitting down and one is imposing, it makes it quite difficult. But we have made it quite clear that our pension income is a no-no. We will not allow our pension income to be part of this debt restructuring. If government is willing to sit down with organized labor to look at other options, perhaps in raising money, we've seen VAT being increased by 2.5 percentage points, right?
Yes.
Now, is it the case that we can get GR?
Hello, Mr. Kodia. Hello, Mr. Kodia, can you hear me? Oh, too bad, we've lost him. Let me bring Mr. Boachi Yadomampon. So you are the labor expert. Clearly, we are seeing here a problem with governance. Labor is upset that government didn't consult it prior to making this announcement. As we sit this morning, we are being told that there's been no engagement whatsoever. There's been no invitation for an engagement. Could this spell doom for government's debt exchange program, seeing the stance of the TUC? Kindly unmute your device, Mr. Iyadom. Hello? Right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good morning, and let me say good morning to my other participants as well, and your cherished listeners. I think in the first place, the government shouldn't have contemplated this without proper engagement. Actually, don't forget that for the union, it's a welfare society. Okay, they seek the welfare of their members, and for them to sit down and you to push this down their throats is a no-no. It will never be accepted. I wonder why they decided to talk to the regulatory bodies without actually talking to such blocks like the TUC, because if you're going to touch pensions, then you know the kind of the constituency that you are going to deal with.
So what do you look up to? You look out for the leadership, have a chat with them. This is a good faith exercise. If you force it down their throat, certainly they won't accept it, because when they go down to the rank and file, to their membership, they should be in a position to explain the rudiments, the principles, and everything with them, okay? And they can only do that if they understand what is on the table. So for me, I think we shouldn't delay in the engagement process. My advice to government would be that issue an invitation to TUC today, have a discussion with them this morning, and then you can go ahead with whatever you are doing with IMF, and then progress with your discussions going forward.
But it's
If
quite
that is done,
sorry, but
yes.
it's quite complicated. We are being told that at 10 a.m. this morning there's going to be an announcement from government and the IMF. I doubt that government will be able to meet Labour prior to that. Seeing that these two parties, I mean government and Labour, appear to be all fixed in their stance, and how critical this will be to the success of the debt exchange program. And that's why I asked, could this spell doom for us?
That is if government fails to engage. You see, the position of the trade union, they are always, negotiating. Whatever they tell you has the face of negotiation in a way. What they've said is to tell you that come to the table and let's have a discussion. I don't think that being part of this economy, it will be even in their interest to derail this process. I don't think so. So the statement they put out there is, for me, is like an invitation to government to come to the table. So they should take it like that. And meetings are normally fixed and postponed all the time. So if you realize that you've not done your preparation very well, what do? They can shift this meeting to the afternoon, meet the TUC this morning. Anytime you call them, they will go. Meet the TUC this morning, have some level of understanding before you go into your meeting with IMF.
Professor Mensah, let me start with you, Benjamin here. I just need to ask, because these are 500,000 strong when you look at the TUC. But they are not approaching this individually because their pension funds are locked up with SNIT, and you can also, some will bring in the TS2 and 3. What could be the consequences if the TUC remains, I don't want to say intransigent because that would be negative, but adamant on their position? What could be the consequences? In other words, do we need to do this in order to secure an IMF program? Prof.
Yeah, I think, you see, the IMF, let me push that, we respond to whether do we have to go through this exercise to secure an IMF program or not. IMF's position has always been that they don't support countries that are in distress. So when IMF engages you, they look at the possibilities and then your expenditure lines and the ones that you can easily free up. Then they can, come in. But clearly, if you look at the government expenditure lines, you cannot easily touch salaries, right? And if we talk about, capital expenditure, the interest payment relative to the capital expenditure, I think the interest payment outweighs, the capex hugely, and then goods and services as well. So what is weighing the Ghanaian, budget every now and then is the interest payment. Salaries you cannot touch for the purpose of production. And of course, if you should touch salary, you're going to get the same TUC coming up again, reacting. So obviously, it's going to be the interest payment. But then there is a communication gap. And the communication gap is that at this time, we should have gotten the regulator, that is the pensions regulator, coming up to tell us the possible exposures. As we're speaking now, we are not conversant with the numbers as to the possible exposures as far as this, debt restructuring or debt exchange is concerned. I can tell you that if the various pension institutions come up and then look at the kind of investment they have done, apply the various actuarial and finance models to tell Ghanaians that this is our likely exposure, I think possibly the TUC might have realized that the exposure could be minimal. But then, if you look at the pensions regulatory, investment limit by the various pension institutions, investment into government bonds is unlimited. There was no boundary as far as government bonds are concerned. And I don't know how the pensions the pension institutions have been investing over the years. Some may have concentrated so highly as far as government bonds are concerned, which we know very well that it's part of what risky investment that you can have your money into, depending on their skill set and the kind of investment skills that they have.
Right.
So effectively, I can tell you that yes, indeed, without limitation, some of the pensions, fund managers can go extreme as far as investment in this government bonds is concerned. So I think it's about time we get the information from the regulator,
right,
telling us that in aggregation, this is going to be the likely exposure. So if government says, I'm not paying interest on bonds next year, the income that they used to enjoy on bonds, which was about 20.1% coupon payment, that income will not come in next year. Right. Would that be enough to say that, okay, fine, the obligations that these pensions institutions have, would they be able to satisfy them? The following year, they're going to receive 5% of their, principal. That 5%, would they be able to offset the, obligations that will come the next year? Thereafter, they're going to receive 10%, till, 2037.
Right.
Would that be enough to, satisfy the obligations or the possible retirements that will come up, over the years? Now, let's also understand that the pensions had invested, in the past, and they've accumulated income.
Right.
The income may not be monies that they've exhausted all of them. They may have reserves. So it's about time they come, and then we do all the numbers, jumble them together. The benefit that they've enjoyed over the years, how would they be able to offset the possible reduction in interest rate going forward? So,
but of course, Prof, so sorry to interject, but of course, these are conversations we've had. The problem being that, of course, if they have a buffer interest that has accrued over the years, it's not meant to just be expended anyhow, because situations may arise, maybe this is one of them, where some of that would be used to defray other costs. But when you look at the fact that principals aren't going to be affected, it is just interest payments that are going to be affected, is the TUC in any sort of error when it comes forth saying things like, if government refuses to accede to our demand, we will advise ourselves, and this is only going to worsen our plight and further plunge us into unimaginable hardship, and all of that, basically threatening industrial action? Is it within their rights from where you sit? Because individuals are not being targeted here. It is everybody who falls into the category.
Yeah, so what I see is that I'm not an expert in labor, and at the same time, I'm not a law person. So what I will see is that the confidence that these pension contributors, i.e. the TUC, will have in the financial system will go down. Okay, so you may have the first tier, second tier being mandatory, but the third tier, you may not get funds going in that regard, because that becomes discretionary to the contributor.
Right.
So effectively, you're going to have that kind of confidence going down. To some extent, if you allow the TUC to have their way, right, they will tell you that they will not put their money in, pensions again. But by law, they are restricted to do so.
Right.
So effectively, well, they can threaten the industrial action, but I can tell you that per the regulations we have, and remember, these regulatory authorities, the pensions, the NIC and all those, they are more or less pseudo government machinery. And at the end of the day, you know, they can easily be influenced, you know. So I can tell you that, yes, they may go ahead with their industrial action, but if government wants to go ahead, they can go ahead. But government needs to realize this. The whole financial system, which, you know, we understand that money must move from one point to the other, hinges on trust, and it hinges on contract. So if you disrespect counterparty contract, you end up breaking your financial system.
Is this debt exchange going to do that? Is it going to reduce the trust in the system?
That is what I'm saying. If the government decide not to engage the counterparty, which in this case, the labor front, it will end up breaking the financial system. The trust will be gone. And then the last lattice that we've been enjoying to move money from one point to the other will be broken.
Let me bring in Ken Chinebua Kodia. This stance that you have adopted has ruffled some feathers, and you're saying that you're going to stick to it, at least per what we heard yesterday, pending what discussions will be held today. We also know what the implications could be on an IMF program. With the sort of explanations that have been given up to this point, don't they suffice in terms of watering down what your expectations are of this debt exchange program? Please unmute if you can hear me.
What has been... yes.
Did you get the question?
Yes, I did. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. What has been professed so far has been public discussions. Government hasn't come up to make any pronouncement on how it intends to address this concern. Public discussions, yes, we understand. And let's not say that TUC doesn't understand or appreciate what it will impact if pension incomes are exempted. We have done our own studies as a labor institution, and we feel that there could be some arrangements to have the pension. After all this IMF arrangements to get 3 billion cedis for this country is to help the other Ghanaian, isn't it? So why do we bring in policies now that will seek to add more burden to the people we are trying to?
So your major beef, the thorny issue, is the fact that you were not engaged. But in the end, the outcome is the same, whether you were engaged or not. I'm not saying that it wasn't important for you to be engaged, but does that mean that now that engagement is going to happen, you'll be willing to go along?
No. Our position on pension income is a no-no. How did government resolve the banking crisis? They found a way around it when they engaged. There could be other ways of looking at safeguarding pension income.
Like what? Like what?
See, when IMF says that it will not support countries in distress, you ask yourself, what is distress? Is it that countries are burdened in terms of debt expenditure? Is it that countries are not generating enough income? If it's about enough income to support the system, let's discuss that issue and see to what extent can income freeze the component of pension income. If it's about getting expenditure to come down to get a space to freeze pension income, let's discuss it. But if you choose not to discuss it at all and assume that, but for pension income, this whole structural adjustment would be affected, that is quite
so I have
illogical.
I have a concern, because you're saying in one breath that we would have wanted engagement before we got to this point. But in another breath, you are suggesting that whether you engage me or not, I'm going to say no anyway. So, I mean, it's a lose-lose situation for government from that angle.
But currently, as we speak, even as Labour, we don't know the promises government has made to IMF. Disclosure of information is also a problem. We have nothing to study and even help us to even that. All we know is the quantum of our pension income and its impact on the ordinary Ghanaian who is saving his money towards retirement. But if it's about alternative ways, then we can sit down and see what other measures can be done to get this IMF program still ongoing, even though TUC, we have our own issue on IMF. If it's about just the pension income exemption, let's look at it and see what can replace that in the equation. But government has held all the information to its chest.
Right.
And we don't have anything to even look at.
So you're basically saying you're not clothed with enough information to even look at the alternatives because you've not been engaged. And when you are engaged, then you can give the options rather than affecting your pension funds. That's what you're saying.
Yes, that could help.
So hopefully today, when that engagement happens, you would bring some of these to bear, right?
It's different calling us to tell us what you. Engagement means that you don't have a predetermined position. But the way it stands now, you have a position communicated to all the parties. Are you engaging us to tell us that I have done this? Or you're engaging us on a clean sheet for us to put new inputs into the equation and see how we can resolve this issue?
Share with me before, right before I get to Mr. Boakye on some of the labor issues. I just want to find out. So, quote, your Secretary General, Dr. Yao said yesterday, all workers must be ready to participate fully in any industrial action to protect our pension funds. Workers will no longer bear the consequences of any IMF-inspired or IMF-sponsored policies and programs. Government is responsible for its decisions, including the decision to seek an IMF bailout. But guess what? We are government. We elect these people to represent us. They are acting in our stead. We don't have a choice. Not all of us can rule. Is this not a bit... I'm looking for the right word. I don't want to say selfish or self-seeking, but everyone falling under that umbrella will be hit. Why is the TUC alone crying foul?
Are you sure everyone falling under this will be hit?
Apart from the few individuals who are bondholders, and we know that is a very small number. So all of those in that catchment area, pension funds, everybody contributing will be hit.
Yes, but must it always be the case that when it comes to IMF entering Ghana, all the policies it seeks to bring ends up making the Ghanaian worker worse off? Those in politics, currently, you know them. People leave public service today, they join politics. What they acquire in the 4 years, 5 years of their service is enough to safeguard their pension for 50 years. The poor worker should be the one who should always bear IMF. Look at the budget for 2023. It seeks to perhaps promote investors, getting confidence, getting people to have confidence in the country. That is fine. But must that go to also bury the employer, say that you are freezing employment? After training your children through school, spending on them all these years, they finish and they come and join the unemployment class, depending on parents now whose salaries are already meager. All the policies in the budget seems to look at the external, and it's about time we look at the internal. We're not being selfish as TUC. All we are saying is that we can achieve our goals minus pension income. And we must sit down and look at how we can sit down and restructure whatever it is to achieve our set goals.
All right.
Again, let me add that the VAT element that has been introduced in the budget, which seeks to enhance revenue, the question we must ask ourselves is this: is government putting in enough measures to ensure that the VAT that you and I pay comes back to the government through GRA? We saw GRA try to get businesses pay the right VAT through the current field vigilation they were doing. We saw the backlash. Government said, please stop. So on one breath, you want revenue to distress. On the other breath, you are not encouraging those same institutions to go out there and bring in the needed revenue to limit some of this bed. So I can summarize and say that TUC has always been negotiating and engaging. But if you choose not to come and sit down for us to look at how we can exempt pension income and find other sources to fill that gap, then we'll not sit down to be imposed upon. And members,
give me a 15-second answer. If pensions are simply not going to be able to be exempted, what will the TUC do? What will you do?
We have made our intentions quite clear.
Industrial actions?
What it could take any other form, including industrial actions, to the extent that the same confidence that we want to have externally could also be the real. But it's not selfish. It's about ensuring that IMF conditions are situated in our context.
Okay.
Not swallowed the way it seeks to do now.
Okay. Let me just bring in Mr. Boakye on this little beat. So I have two questions, maybe just this one. What are the intricacies involved? Because it's a very slippery slope. The pension holders have their own interests. There's the government and where we've ended, and the national interest. First off, is the TUC right in positioning itself this way? And from the labor end, what could be the consequences? Then, if it insists going down this road, as a labor person, what could be the consequences of saying on that, Mr. Boakye?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that, let me start with your second question. I think that we don't have to go that road, whatever it is.
No, but the question is, can they go down that road legally from the labor perspective? Is it a possibility? Can they push this? How far can they push this?
I said that they have the right to say that, look, because you've done this to us, we are withdrawing our services. They have the right to do that, provided they go through, the law, as is prescribed by the current labor law. They can do that. But the fact of the matter is that they should be prevented from doing that.
When you say they should be prevented, what do you mean?
Oh, what they want is engagement. I've said it earlier, that the statement they put out there is an invitation to some level of discussion.
What they want, in essence, they've said they wanted to be engaged earlier, but if you listen to Mr. Kodua, he made it clear it's to find a way of going round pension funds, not touching pension funds. If I am correct, I think that is what they want. It's not about just talking. They want pension funds exempted. That's what they want.
That is what they want. But government also wants pension funds, included. So what it poses to us as two separate positions which must be discussed and then come to some level of compromise. I don't think that the union will stick to their guns if they are engaged and allow the whole process to be derailed. I don't think they will do that. If government comes, that is what Mr. Kodua said, if they come and give them all the information they need. These guys are also quite knowledgeable. They will then go into the real issues, discuss the issues, and come up with something that, both parties could actually go in sync into. Because don't forget that it's a political institution. They also go through elections. So if you sit there at the top and you do things without consulting the rank and file, you have a huge task going into your next elections, just like the politicians do. So they are protecting their jobs as well. They are protecting the interests of their members. I don't think that it is too difficult to call for the government to engage them and go through the issues even today.
So as far as the TUC is concerned, what is being done is legitimate.
In terms of?
In terms of the actions, in terms of their positioning, first of all, that they don't want pension funds included, in terms of the basis that they've stated that it will bring them undue hardship, in terms of the consequences, which could include industrial action.
Yeah, they are saying this because they do not have the full, disclosure to deal with. So if you call them and say that, okay, this is why we did this, it involves A, B, C, D. In fact, the whole domestic debt exchange, for me, is premised on discussions. You cannot just come and, issue a statement and say, this is what we are doing. I believe that in the first place, the discussions they had with the statutory bodies were necessary, but they should have sent that further down, okay, to the stakeholders themselves, for them to also have a say in how this whole thing should emerge.
Right.
Okay. So if it has not happened, for me, it is not too late. They can still do it. If they are invited for a discussion today, I am sure that by tomorrow their story will be different. It will not be the same story.
All right. Just to wrap my batch of questions for you, gentlemen, Bernice will continue from here, and then maybe we'll wrap up at the end. I'll come through with a few more thoughts. I'd just like to find out from you, Mr. Boakye. So, on the basis of what we know now, the failure of government to have engaged these entities is known to be a mistake that could have been avoided. As a labor consultant, what are some of the other mistakes that you have seen in this process that could have been avoided, that could have prevented us from getting here?
For instance, I believe that the government could have come up with a tacit statement saying that this is what we are going to do, generally, without going into the nitty-gritties, the details. Okay, so that after you've spoken to all the, your stakeholders, you come out with what you really want to do. Because if you do this, and Mr. Kodia have said that already, it means you have taken a position. And so even if you are inviting me, it is just to tell me that this is what I want to do. Right. And for me, that is not good faith exercise.
Thank you, Mr. Boakye.
Colleague Professor Godfred Bopping has been speaking on the debt exchange program. He's predicting more forms of exchange, debt exchange in the coming days. He believes that what we are discussing now is just the first phase of a series of measures. He mentions that government will implement exchange with non-tradable debts and make other adjustments. Can you just explain to us further what that will mean? Hello, Professor Lord Mensah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but then I think my video...
Yes, there's a problem.
The host has taken the video from me.
Sorry,
So,
we'll try and
I don't
rectify
know.
that, but we can still hear you, so you can still go ahead with your response if you heard my question.
Yes, can you come up with your question again?
Yes,
please?
I'm saying that your colleague, Professor Godfred Bopping, has been saying that there will be more forms of debt exchange in the coming weeks. Are you aware of anything like that? Do you know anything like that?
Well, I'm not aware of anything of that sort.
Okay, so he tells us that government's next step will be to implement exchange with non-tradable debts and make adjustments. Yeah. If that goes through, what would it mean? And if you can, explain what that will mean, an exchange with non-tradable debts.
I think non-tradable debt, to some extent, more or less having an equity in the country's revenue proceeds. I can tell you that, for you to exchange your tradable debt with non-tradable one, i.e., these are debts that you cannot put on the market. So I don't know how the government will go about it. Because the essence of investment is to make sure that you get your return. So probably a non-tradable debt will be maybe having, a stake, maybe in one of the state assets or something. In the end, that will be part of your debt. So for instance, if you own a bond, then maybe the state can exchange it with maybe proceeds from, let's say, Ghana Airport's, Terminal 3. Or we can say that it will be maybe proceeds from, Tema Port and Harbor, or maybe whatever, asset the state has. In that case, you cannot put the asset on the market. but then you still enjoy your proceeds. But that would be too extreme. I mean, if it turns out to be that kind of debt exchange government will be looking out for, then of course the country is more or less coming to a halt.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it will turn up that, management of the economy has failed, completely. In the end, whatever money they raise through bonds and other things cannot be, used, judiciously. And therefore, they may want, creditors to come and take over some of the state assets that are non-tradable.
Right.
So effectively, that is what it means. It happened in Zambia, and I think that would be an extreme situation, for this country.
But Prof, if Labour gets government to heed its demand of not using pensions for the debt exchange program, could this be a possibility for government? I mean, we are yet to hear from government on this. It's Professor Bopping who is predicting it, but could that be a possibility?
Well, then in that case, that could be a possibility. Like I said, it happened in somewhere, Zambia, where foreign creditors have come to take over some key assets in their country, like their airport and all those, just to reap their money back and then give the asset back to the state. That would be an extreme. I don't know maybe whether my colleague professor is looking at our external debt and how some of the possible debt restructuring negotiations that we are about to go into will end up. So effectively, but for the locals, like what we have with our pensions now, it is easier. I mean, and as we are all, calling for to ensure that at least there should be an engagement. But for our foreign debt, there's a likelihood that we can get to that extreme. It's possible. I mean, it's possible. We can't rule that out.
Interesting. Back to you, Mr. Trinibua Kodia. Let me just ask this very simple question. Have you lost confidence in this government?
Obviously not. Obviously not. We elected this government, and we feel that with the right processes, we can all govern or contribute to govern this country so it becomes what we all desire it to be. But I must also add that government's inability to have stakeholders discuss national issues, not only on this debt restructuring, but on major policies that affect the Ghanaian worker, is becoming consistently unacceptable. It cannot be that policies that are geared towards enhancing the ordinary Ghanaian are discussed without getting the stakeholders involved. It's our belief that if government would open its doors wider for inputs from all stakeholders on national issues, perhaps we can find some solutions to some of the issues. But IMF issues, if you check the history of IMF in Ghana, you would always find, my sister, that in as much as it tries to get our debt issues resolved and also build investor confidence, it brings some harsh blows on a section of the population. And we must begin to look at it, how we can get IMF programs done in this country. I hope there's no more, there won't be any more IMF program in the future. But done in a way that fits our progress and context as a country. The way it comes to distort virtually everything. Then we build again up to a point, then we go back to IMF, then we destroy all that we have built, and that cycle must stop.
Right. My final question to you, and back to you, Professor Lord Mensah. On the front page of the Economic Times, the big story, the BOG spends $5.6 billion in debt servicing and others. And let me just bring you some details. So according to the governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, we've experienced an outflow of $5.6 billion to date, and that's the extent of pressure on the central bank's reserves because we have to pay for our loans. And so yesterday, Prof, we heard from former Finance Minister Seth Tekpe, who raised concerns about the BOG and the pressure on the BOG as a result of what we are trying to do to save our economic mess. What are your concerns about this, and what is the likely impact?
Yeah, well, obviously, BOG serves as the bank for the government. And so whatever debt obligations the government has is a BOG that must settle it. Of course, you know, at the end of the day, whatever inflows that is coming into our folds through our export and all those, the same BOG that must, you know, settle it. And the government, the BOG also has the mandate of ensuring that we enjoy some price stability and then some kind of, you know, monetary, easiness. But the BOG hasn't got control over the fiscal side of, you know, our economic management. And that is where the problem is. The link between the monetary management of our economy and the fiscal side, which has to do with how we spend and all those. So there will be pressure on BOG because they don't have control over, you know, the way we spend into our policies and how it builds up back into the economy, the kind of revenue we must generate in relation to this, you know, expenditure. So it's something that, you know, there will be pressure. But I think over time, we are all going through process and we are learning. And I believe that these structures that we've been proposing, the link between the BOG, which has the mandate to ensure that at the monetary front, we are stable, we'll have that kind of relationship with the fiscal side, which is the finance minister's side, to ensure that, you know, the economy grows in a direction that is expected. But in effect, there is pressure. And of course, the BOG keeps the reserves of the government. And what is interesting is that because the Eurobond market has been priced out of Ghana, you know, Ghana has been priced out of the market. So we cannot go there to raise the dollar again to offset existing debt. And as a result of that, whatever dollar we have or the reserves that we have, government must eat into it to pay off its obligations that are in foreign currency. So effectively, it's challenging. And I do admit that there will be pressure on the central bank as we speak.
Right. So just by way of information, and especially on the importance of running a successful debt exchange program, he says that on the next pay slips, we've lost from the balance of payment almost $3.4 billion to September, and we are projecting that we could even lose more by December this year. We could have lost $4 billion US. Again, if we are successful with the restructuring operations, a burden of balance of payment in terms of interest payment, external interest payment, would also be lifted. So we do not expect to see the same type of outflows as we are seeing this year. So that's just by way of information on why it's important for us to run a successful debt exchange program. Benjamin.
Back to you, Prof, as we wind down on this conversation. So I have three very quick points I want you to look at. The first has to do with investors in dollar-denominated, you know, investments and how they are expected to take a 30% haircut on the principal amounts that they have invested. Is this going to drive away such investors, especially as we are looking at the fact that, interestingly, we have had the precarious situation where about 40% of our local debt or domestic debt has been held by foreign investors. We know about a third of that is owned by the commercial banks. But this year, somehow we're being told that by Bloomberg that it will fall down to about 10%. What are the dynamics on those, putting those two issues together? And lastly, today, that negotiation with the IMF is going to be concluded. Whether we'll get a staff level agreement or not, we do not know. What are your expectations, Prof?
Okay, so for every investor, once the expectations of the investor is not met, obviously there will be a reaction. And the investor came into an investment or may want to go into an investment with a certain expectation. So if it turns out that I'm supposed to enjoy, you know, this is just a scenario, 20% of my investment, and you end up giving me 10%, you've not met my expectation. And obviously my confidence in you will go down. And if I'm a new investor and I'm coming into your environment, and there's a history of that sort where investors put in their money into the government folds and they end up not receiving the coupons or the returns that are expected, obviously I will react, and I will shy away from your kind of packages or investment that you put out there. So I will say that yes, it's going to affect investor confidence, and that is the hallmark of any economy that is struggling. Every economy that is struggling, investors tend to shy away from that economy generally. So I would say that yes, indeed, it will have impact on investor confidence. With the expectations on the IMF and then the government's engagement, I can tell you that government should have done a lot of homework before engaging this the IMF visitors. But looking at what is on the ground, if we should go by the reactions that the government has been receiving since it announced this exchange program, I can tell you that the IMF will be ready to give the government more time to engage the public before they come back for another meeting. So it will be an announcement that will not necessarily give a concrete kind of outcome to say that probably government has gotten staff level agreement with the IMF. Probably they may agree on staff level agreement, but they will give the government more time to engage its people or investors before they come up with another level of negotiations.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Mensah, for having joined the conversation. Of course, he is with the University of Ghana Business School. To wrap up the conversation with Mr. Boakye and Mr. Kodia, it's interesting because I've been looking at this text message, the second time I'm getting it, and this is my Tier 2 pension, has been inviting me to a discussion, guess what, on the debt exchange and the impact on pensions. I'll start with you, Mr. Kodia. So what is the way forward? What next for the TUC, especially as Guta has also been calling on you to also let go of this stance and maybe just allow sleeping dogs to lie? According to this bit that I'm looking at, they are lauding government's efforts at stabilizing the value of the Ghana cedi, but they also have their concerns about the stance you're putting up. What is your take? Quick reactions as we end.
Okay. TUC, obviously, we have the national interest, and the measures government is currently pursuing to stabilize the economy and our financial issues are issues that obviously we all have interest in. Our issue has been that a portion of that measures would further cause some difficulty that can be avoided if the whole equation is really looked at. And that's all we are saying, that we want to achieve whatever we all will have to do to get this economy running. But a portion of that process should be really re-examined. And that is all that TUC seeks to do. And I believe that if that is done in all fairness and in good faith, I'm sure we can get this process running without any disruptions.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Chinibwa Kodia, Vice Chairman of the TUC. Let me wrap with Mr. Boakye. What do you see to be the way forward in this entire development?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the way forward has already been stated. I think the government must open the window for discussion. And I am sure that knowing the union movement, if there's that opportunity provided, they will shape their stance.
It's interesting you say window, Bernice. It would then mean that the door had been shut and now a window must be opened for something to happen. Of course, that was also Yadom Boakye Amponsa, a labor consultant who joined the conversation. Quite a conversation we've had there, but it is clear that from the standpoint of labor, I heard that very forcefully. Don't keep on implementing policies, programs when you've not engaged us I don't know whether those at the helm of affairs will listen, but
And
I felt that.
Yeah, and I can remember clearly the number of times we've engaged different.
We don't have to go far.
Talk
The
about
e-levy
NAT, talk
is
about
one of them.
UTAG, talk about all these other labor unions and organizations that have consistently said that you can't keep doing this to us. And that's what prompted my question about whether TUC had lost confidence in this government, in its ability to deal with some of these matters. Well, the answer was that no, we haven't lost confidence, but we would hope that these things do not continue happening. We've got our fingers crossed. This morning, we are being told that we will be hearing from the Finance Ministry and the IMF on exactly where we've reached with our IMF negotiations. So you do want to stay with us here on the JoyNews channel. We will update you on that. But for now, we'll take a quick breather. When we come back, Benjamin, Christmas is approaching. We're in the season already, but Christmas Day and all the festivities that come with it, they're fast approaching. But the Road Safety Authority is concerned. We want you to stay safe during this festive season. When we come back, we'll be talking a lot more about that. Do stay.
Well, it is clear, don't drink and drive. Avoiding drinking and driving is essential, especially around this time. But it appears a lot of people take it for granted when the Yuletide is approaching. That is why today we're having a conversation on drink driving and its impact on people. And so on that note, we shall introduce our guests shortly as we have this conversation with the Ghana Road Safety Authority. Joining the discussion, Acting Director General David Osafo Adonting. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning, my brother, and thank you very much for asking me to join you this morning.
Right. Now, from the standpoint of the Ghana National Road Safety Authority, we do know that this year has not been as bad as last year in terms of the metrics that we are seeing by way of accidents on our roads. But how much of a concern is it that we still have so many crashes? The latest that we've seen, captured by the Ghanaian Times newspaper today, Ataniata, 11 children killed in a road crash. How bad has it been this year?
Thank you very much. Good morning, and then to your cherished listeners and viewers also. Indeed, this year, I must say that we have experienced quite some horrific crashes in the past 11 months up to the end of November. What is motivating us, however, is that if you compare the situation to the same period last year, we have made some significant gains in terms of reductions in the crashes, in the deaths, and the injuries, which we call the CID. I can say with the statistics that is available to us from the Ghana Police Service that we have made some 18% reductions in the deaths, 6% reductions in the crashes, and a marginal about 0.3% reductions in the injuries compared to the same period last year. This is very significant because it is not easy as a country to minimize or reduce your crashes, your injuries, and your deaths. In fact, it's very unprecedented because if you look at our history, in the past 20 years, we haven't had these indicators coming down, all of them in this sense. So I think that I commend the interventions that are on the ground. I must say that the media in particular, multimedia, I must commend you so much for your Drive Safe campaign and all the others who supported the Stay Alive and the Arrive Alive Road Safety campaign in the past 3 years, ruled by the National Road Safety Authority. Beyond that, I must also commend the police for supporting this Stay Alive campaign, Arrive Alive campaign, with enforcement, which they started with the War Against Indiscipline And now we can see them rolling what we call PARI, police action against rider indiscipline and the rest. But we still haven't gotten there where we want to be. We are still recording the crashes. Anyway, over 1,900 deaths have been recorded already in 10 months this year. So we still have a problem at hand. And moving into Christmas, it makes it even more riskier to record more deaths because if you look at our history, it clearly tells us of figures going up as a result of the overpopulation of road users, vehicles on our roads. Getting to Christmas, people want to travel more, so you see more vehicles on our roads. You see a lot of people, a lot of activities, and beyond that, merrymaking, church-going, parties, and so on. Unfortunately, some of these come about people not becoming alert and indisciplined in terms of using alcohol and drugs to excite themselves. And unfortunately, in Ghana, when you talk about merrymaking, one of the things we see associated with it is drinking. Now, people forget themselves when they drink, then they go and sit behind steering wheel. Others will want to use the alcohol to activate their capacities to do more work in terms of driving than before. For example, you go to the lorry terminal, you're a commercial vehicle operator, and you see so many people anxious and desperate to travel to their various destinations in numbers, and you are tempted to do 1, 2, 3 more of what you used to do in terms of the journey. Now, what some of them perhaps deceive themselves with is to take drugs or take alcohol, which in that case, to them, will let them do more, will give them the strength. Unfortunately, it deceives them because it increases your reaction time, your alertness, your concentration and focus is disturbed.
Right.
In this case, unfortunately, you have a deception. I think you are on top of the world. You feel so good in the road space, but that is where the problem comes up. And so we have now rolled up a plan and a program to sensitize Ghanaians. Everybody must listen to us because we're on the field. We know what is happening. And we are saying that alcohol is one of the contributing factors to road crashes during festive seasons like the Christmas, the New Year, and so on. And so we have started this awareness station, of which I must commend you for taking it up to support the National Road Safety Authority.
Let me find out from you. So I've been taking a look in preparing for this conversation at some of our driving and drinking statistics and the fatalities. And in 2015, there was a bit of research conducted, a survey basically. So some 2,000 plus, 2,700 plus drivers were stopped and they were breathalyzed. And guess what? Over 8% of them had some amount of alcohol within their system, and over 5% of them had beyond what was required. That is the 0.08%. What do you think we should be doing in that respect in terms of breathalyzing drivers, especially those who do long journeys and all of that? Because that's what we foresee during the season, and that usually is where the carnage happens.
I think that first of all, the statistics you just put up the reality, and that is the figures we have currently. If you take every 100 or any 100 drivers on the streets now, you're likely to have an average of about 5 to 5.5% of them taking alcohol. And like I said, they have their own reasons for taking the alcohol, but they are reasons that will not help them or support them. In any case, we have identified, and so we have indeed created intervention to address this problem. One is the awareness creation, which we are doing now, because some of them, they do not know the adverse repercussions when they take the alcohol. And so we are using awareness creation to sensitize them so that they know the bad aspects of taking alcohol to drive. Again, the best practice across the world, apart from education and sensitization, is enforcement. Indeed, the law has provided a 0.08 BAC, that's breath alcohol content. It's an index and a measure for us to know that if your blood alcohol content through which we know the quantity of alcohol within you and the damage it can cause to you, if it goes beyond 0.08, then it means that you have taken something more than the law stipulates. The law is being enforced by the police currently, using breathalyzers. Unfortunately, you cannot do it everywhere, and so you find some of them escaping the police apprehension. But coming this season, we have met with the IGP. We have strategized that the police are going to populate the road space with their officers, holding these breathalyzers and then checking the police intermittently along the road stretches, especially on the highway, which means that no driver is now going to take the law into his own hands, drive and drink. We are going to use enforcement to stamp down on alcohol and drink driving. So I want to take advantage of this opportunity to advise all drivers to desist from drinking alcohol. In fact, our road safety inspectors will be at lorry terminals, the major lorry terminals, and will be monitoring this. Because as you are aware, we are challenged by the fact that lorry stations and terminals, there are a lot of joints there where they sell food, at the same time sell alcohol. It is very close to them. Even though we have ensured that most of them don't go there to drink, they have other means of getting out of the terminal to do their own thing. But some even have them in their pockets and in a form of total packs and so on. So we are monitoring all these. We know what they do. And so we have strategized, we have put our road safety inspectors on board. Some of them, we call them an undercover road safety inspectors. They will be part of the passengers in back, traveling with them, and will be monitoring. To you, the driver is a passenger, but to us, the National Road Safety Authority is an undercover road safety inspector, a kind of a road safety nurse, kind of. And I think that we will try to monitor the behavior of drivers in terms of alcohol, drugs, and other misbehavior and practices to come down on these, so that we don't get ourselves in what used to be 10 people die, 20 people die, 6 people die in the past through those traffic crashes in festive season of Christmas and New Year.
Right, and I like how you spoke about road safety analysis, whatever, who will be on the roads, ensuring that they are undercover and they'll spot some of these things and bring them to the national lenses, or at least to the authorities, so we can avoid those crashes like the one that claimed the lives of 11 children. But earlier this morning, in a conversation with an energy analyst, Kojo Poku, this bit about road crashes came up, and he made the point that in Ghana, a lot of people know how to drive, but they do not know how to drive. They've not been properly educated on driving. His point being that we know how to move a car, but some of the simple regulations, you are at a roundabout, who has the right of way? On the motorway, at what speed should you be going? If you're using the right lane, if you're using the left lane on some urban roads, what do they imply? Why do some people use certain lanes when in fact their cars are going very slowly, like some of these Pragnias and other vehicles that slow people down? And you know what that means? A lot of people are in a hurry. These ones slow you down. You want to go past them, accident. So what then has been your collaboration with the DVLA to educate, ensure that everyone on the road is educated, and maybe re-educate those of us who have been driving for quite a while? What's going on in that regard?
I think this problem, I would not deny the fact that to some extent I would agree with our good friend who made the submission.
Right.
But things are gradually changing. In fact, in the past, to get a driver's license at DVLA was very easy. Sometimes you need to go through certain channels, the gurus, and so on, and you get it. I'm told those days you may even be at home and you get your driver's license all right. But things are changing. Now, DVLA systems are automated. It would be difficult for anybody to sit at home and get a driver's license. You need to go through a certain driving school, get some skills training, and then apply. DVLA will scrutinize electronically. And so before you even go through the pass mark of the test, which is also now automated, I think that you have gone through a certain procedure and processes which might have then empowered you adequately for you to guarantee you a valid driver's license. So I would say that the problem used to be there in a high scale, on a very high scale, but now we are putting in systems to minimize that. A lot more people are going through the driving school. DVLA system is now scrutinized better than before. So we are now producing better drivers than the past 10 years, past 5 years. I know that moving forward, we will scale it up to an extent that now to get a license, a driver's license in Ghana would have to be merrymaking, like it is done in the US and the UK everywhere. Things are not that easy again. And so we will just request that Kenyans will remain patient. We are using technology at an advanced stage at DVLA. The National Road Safety Authority very soon will be rolling up a mandatory training for all commercial vehicle drivers. Without it, if you don't produce a certificate of going through a driver's training, you would be denied your driver's license or renewal or upgrading of your driver's license. And we're starting next year.
Right.
So I must say that Sankofa, we have left some gaps for some time. Now things are changing. We are now making it up. And so that is why I can firm up with you that the figures are now reducing. 18% reduction in deaths on road traffic crashes compared to last year is significant, and it's a clear demonstration that some positive interventions are on the ground. And come next year, when the police are also able to now introduce their camera system, where cameras are now going to detect, apprehend, and prosecute, I am sure we will get somewhere. So it's a matter of patience.
All right.
And we are working a lot around the clock to get all these systems in place in the coming year.
I want us to wrap this conversation in just about a minute, and I just want to know, so what other best practices can you proffer, not just for this Christmas, because it often feeds into the new year, some of these road crashes, and that leads to a spike often between December and January. What other best practices would you proffer for all of us as we wrap 2022? And that will be your final word for us.
I think that moving forward, the next year and beyond, we are going to adopt technology in road safety management. Almost every practice, be it education, enforcement, licensing, registration, and all that will now be automated or digitized.
Right.
Technology will help us to identify very quickly and deal with. They will take off issues of human intervention. And so there is nobody personally sitting somewhere to approve your driver's license, or for that matter, I let you go even if you flout a traffic law. Systems are going to be in place, and people are not going to go scot-free for flouting road traffic regulations and laws.
Right.
You'll be fined, and all these electronic systems, which I guarantee you that will come in place next year, will come to support all the things we are doing. So,
just give me a fair idea. Which ones are we? Are we talking breathalyzers? Are we talking traffic equipment? What are we talking?
We're talking about mainly 6 cameras in place, and you will find them like some of them you are seeing now in the city of Accra, the surveillance cameras. But this time, they are traffic enforcement cameras, very advanced. They will be supported by in-vehicle cameras. Cameras will be fixed in vehicles. The vehicles will be traveling with us on the road. All it does is that they are identifying his behavior,
right,
and then sending information to a control room, and then you'll be apprehended. Wherever you are, you'll be gotten to. And then we hand over a fine to you, which you go and redeem yourself at the pay point. Just as it's done in Europe and the rest. I think we are going to transform the entire road safety management system, especially in enforcement, to make our roads better than it is currently.
Engineer Adonting, we're grateful that you took the time to join us. Engineer David Osafo Adonting is Acting Director at the National Road Safety Authority. Thank you so much for your time, sir. And that is what he had to share with us. Of course, as we approach this season, we ought to drive carefully, but even more importantly, not drink and drive. If you're going to drive, don't drink. And if you're going to drink, don't drive. It's as simple as that. Stay with us on the AM show. There are a lot more conversations we have lined up. And at the tail end, we shall take your thoughts on the discussions we've been having today. We'll be right back.
Hello there once again. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. So news just coming through is that the IMF has reached a staff-level agreement with Ghana's government. We'll be bringing you more details on that when Benjamin joins me, and also we'll be also hearing from the Finance Ministry and the IMF later today. But just to let you know, the IMF has reached a staff-level agreement with our government. Well, before then, I'm here to tell you about a very innovative application, Art Split app. First off, Art Split is an art technology company driven by one common goal, which is to enhance investment status of African art by allowing users to co-own rare and valuable artworks on a platform that guarantees price discovery and market liquidity. The company's mission is to position African art and artists as the preferred alternative investment choice by democratizing access to iconic African art alongside developing the African art ecosystem through technology and co-ownership. This morning, I've been joined by Muyiwa Oloroporuku, Head Partnerships and Event Art Split. I like the way you laughed when I mentioned your name. Did I get it right?
You did very well.
I've got a tongue around Nigerian names. Well, first off, tell us, why is Art Split important?
Well, thank you so much. Like I briefly mentioned in the introduction, we believe so much that this is time for us to actually enhance, the profile of African art and African artists, and there's a better way to do it and a better time than now, and then through technology. Prior to now, what you have is conventional way of buying art pieces and selling them, and appreciating art. What we have done is to bring that space into technology and revolutionize the way people actually see art and engage and interact with art. Also ensuring that there's providing alternative investment option for Africans generally, not just African in Africa, but African in diaspora.
Interesting. So there's an element in there called the split auction. Mm-hmm. Tell us more about it.
Okay, thank you so much. Our business model actually works around three different parameters. One of them is the split auction. And what split auction means is allowing for fractional ownership. So we break every work down into splits. So for instance, an L and Archery's work that sells for $100,000, we break it down into 100,000 units. So that means that with a dollar, you can actually buy a unit of that artwork. So the split auction just allows you to bid for the favorite work that you want and buy the units, which we call splits, that you can afford. And what we've done is also lower barrier into that, into that space. So for as low as 10 cents, 20 cents, $1, you can actually own, a piece of an iconic artist's work.
So this is almost like having shares in one piece of art.
Fantastic.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So how do you, so there's two things. So there's the benefit to the artist and the benefit to the investor who comes on board. But how do artists get on board?
Okay, so it's a simple process. Download the app, register, indicate as an artist, because we also have an artist dashboard that allows you to tell us that you're an artist. We verify, and once you are verified, then you come on board. So there are two different models in this actually. So there is the investment grade work, and there is the open market opportunity. The investment grade work are the ones that go through the split auction, where you bid to own splits of this artwork. And then once we're done with that, it goes into your portfolio, more like every other investment asset. It goes into your portfolio. You can then go to the secondary market and sell. Then the other one is for open market, where you do outright collection of art pieces. That way you can actually buy an artwork outrightly, and then you take it, put it on your wall, and there it goes. But the investment, which is the split auction, allows you just by fraction. Then you can also hold the physical custody of it.
All right.
Also, yes,
okay.
We allow for what we call lease model. The way we work is like after the split auction ends, the lease auction take effect and also ends. What happens is everyone who has invested in the split auction also has a chance to say, I want to have a physical custody of this work. Then you go into the lease auction where you begin to bid to own it. So the highest bidder then takes
it.
An interesting thing is that for every single person who has bought splits during the split auction, then get dividends of their investment in the immediate, because proceeds from the lease auction is shared amongst everyone that owns that work.
Fantastic, that's interesting. So the app is Art Split app, and it's on Android?
It's on Android and iOS.
iOS devices. So just search Art Split. This is interesting. I did visual arts in school, so I have.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, I did.
You should be on Art Split.
So I just have a thing for art. But you've expanded in Nigeria. You're now in South Africa. What are your plans? Spreading to other parts of the continent.
Thank you. We're actually starting an expansion with Ghana,
Nice.
so which explains why we are here.
Great.
For the past 2 weeks, we've been doing our online auction for 3 iconic Ghanaian works, by Abu-Baidoo, Kofi Agoso, and Ishaq Ismail. The works actually went live on the app on the 2nd, but this week we are doing what we call public viewing. And it started on Sunday with our opening party, which happened at the Mix Design Hub and Restaurant. We had quite a number of people came around, almost about 150 people came around for the opening party. The opportunity we are creating is for people to see the works that we actually listed on the app and then appreciate it better, have an environment of fun and some excitement, then actually see that there is actually physical work, not just the virtual, not the digital one that we're showing on the app. Series of activities actually built up, right? Currently, the public viewing is happening at the Mix Design Hub. And also on Thursday, we plan to have what we call a silent party. That way, with your headset, you actually enjoy good music. Also, if you want to listen to audiobooks about Africa and African art, you get to listen to them starting from 6 p.m. to like 8 p.m. And on Friday, yes, we're having a session with Abu-Baidoo and Kofi Agoso, where people can actually come in, also listen to them speak about African art, about culture, how it evolved over time, and how technology is now changing the narrative of African art, enhancing investment part of it. So our expansion plan is, in Ghana right now. We also plan to move into East Africa and also part of Europe, where we currently have some operations going on already, and then in the US as well. So we continue to expand. And the essence of this is to ensure that we enhance the investment value of African art and make sure that African art has a right of place in the global level.
Interesting. So look, like I said, I did visual arts. I love art. Art is life. Look, when I have conversations about art, I tell people you have no idea the importance, the benefits of art. Talk about art therapy. There's some of the solution to your stress is just to walk in a gallery, look at beautiful art pieces and relax and enjoy yourself. So, and this is exciting because we're now bringing the world to artists and artists to the world via technology.
Exactly.
So you can run them concurrently. If you're an artist who's watching us and you have a showroom or a place where you exhibit your works, you can still do that and still, get on board Art Split and then showcase your art to the rest of the world. And for those of you who are not very good artists who want to take advantage of the investment opportunities. We're talking about, you're coming from Nigeria, but here, we've been having conversations about our economy. We're just hearing that the IMF has reached a staff level agreement with us. So people are looking for investment opportunities. So this is a beautiful opportunity for you to get on board with Art Split. So you've explained to us how the platform works, but what makes African art stand out? Let's talk about African art a bit, okay? And all the beautiful designs and products that come out of this continent.
Thank you so much. I've always said this, and I'll continue to say it, that Africa has the best when it comes to visual arts. We have a way of communicating our stories, our experiences, our realities, our emotions, and when you look at the way the artist, the strokes, the way the use of acrylic, the medium, multimedia, something, so you begin to appreciate Africa better. Now, there are times where people, the way they see Africa, just mainly black. In reality, you see dynamic artists, iconic one, very prolific, coming up with certain, interesting pieces, lines, convey their emotions, to convey the reality of their people. You know, just about a couple of weeks ago, we ended an auction that was talking about a man between life and death, showing a man, a critical moment in the man's life when he's passing, and you could see the emotions of the family members who are sitting, you know, trying to, you know, the way the artist actually captured the mood, captured the reality of those people at that point in time, the fear, the grief. You know, and then also the relief in the face of the man is who's also going like, I'm going to rest eventually. You know, there are no better ways to communicate this. And African art and African artists have been able to do this very well. And we're saying that that's the world actually experience the way the Africans tell their story, because the way our stories are being told. But there are better ways to tell our stories, and it is better told from the hand, from the pen, from the, you know, from the strokes, from the brushes of an African artist. So, and I think we've seen the dynamism, we've seen, you know, the reality of Africa through African artists, and that is what separates us from every other, you know, arts, you know, venture across the world.
Let me just throw this in. So there are different forms of art. We're seeing paintings, we're seeing sculptures. Yes, because I did ceramics, so I love molding and making objects. So do you have room for that as well? Can people take photos of a certain image, a totem, you know, something they've designed? Does it work that way, or it's just for paintings and murals and all those other forms of art?
So thank you so much. There is a social connectivity solution on ArtSplit. It's called ArtSplit Timeline. It's actually more like a convergence point for African artists, you know, collectors, art enthusiasts, art lovers, where they actually share their thoughts, share their feelings, share images, and share experiences. So that platform actually allows you to take pictures of the works that you have done as an artist, put on the app. People will like it, will make comments about it. You know, they will even reach out to say that we want to buy this art, you know, the artwork from you. So that actually is available. And also, if you're just a regular person who just want to just show your experience or show your feelings at some point in time, just call it the IG of art. Actually,
yeah, I like that.
That's actually what it is. You know, if you actually interact with it, it's actually very interesting. And so that can happen beyond you putting your work in the open market, where we actually do outright sale of the work. You can actually have your work, just post a picture, and people can like it, and then say they actually want to buy it from you, and you move on from there. So that actually happens also on the ArtSplit.
I wish we could go on and on, but we've run out of time.
So,
how can people reach you? I mean, we know, and I've just opened my app store. That's ArtSplit. I'm going to download it now. But how do we get in contact with you? Social media? How do we read about ArtSplit if someone is just joining us and wants to know more?
So if you actually want to follow us on IG, it's ArtSplit Official. If you want to follow on Twitter, it's ArtSplit Global. You can also visit our website, www.artsplit.com, where you can actually read more about us and see the artists that we have on our platform and the offerings that we actually give, in addition to the way the app works itself, which is very, very interactive.
I like that. So there you have it, ArtSplit. Just about to download mine, but thank you so much, Muyiwa Olowokporoku. He's head partnerships and events with ArtSplit, and they are just here to help your life get easier as an artist. And also, if you're someone who's looking for investment opportunities, trust me, art pays a lot. Now, water is life. It regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through a strict purification process to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect sizes for all occasions: 330 ml and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more. We've introduced our special 19-liter jar for offices and homes. Now, you just need to stay awake with Awake purified drinking water wherever you go. Come on, grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake purified drinking water, one for life. Remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casa Precum. For bulk purchase, please call 026-235-1251. This advert is FDA approved. And before I go shortly for this breather, the Ghana Revenue Authority wishes to inform you that persons wishing to apply for tax clearance certificates should do so online or download the Ghana Taxpayers app on Google Play Store or App Store. Applicants who visit the GRA's taxpayer service centers will be assisted by officers to apply. Applicants are also required to indicate the taxpayer identification number, that's the TIN, of the institution or organization requesting the certificate so that they can receive a copy. Applicants should take note and be guided accordingly. Kindly contact GRA's toll-free 0800 900 110 or via these WhatsApp numbers 055 299 0000 or 020 063 or send an email for further enquiries. We'll take a quick breather. When we come back, Benjamin joins me. We'll bring you more details on that statement released by the IMF on it reaching a staff-level agreement with Ghana. And then we'll get interactive with you. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. Benjamin joins me. Ben, so it's now confirmed we've reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF, and the details are contained in a statement. But we also know that the Finance Ministry and the IMF will be organizing a presser later today. We've got our men on the ground, so once it starts, we will go there.
I guess they'll be giving us a better blow-by-blow briefing, if you like, of what exactly this entails. And maybe it will also resolve some of the discussions we've had today as far as the TUC and others are concerned. So maybe it will give proper perspective to what an IMF deal could mean. I don't think this would state everything categorically, but it would give us a bit of an idea of a roadmap, what the implications could be.
Interesting days ahead. But we also know this is not the end of the road. There are processes involved.
This is actually just the start of the road.
Reaching a staff-level agreement doesn't mean you have the money yet. So we'll just wait to hear more from the Finance Ministry and the IMF. But it's time to get interactive with you. You can call us. The numbers will be projected on your screens shortly. Share your thoughts with us. What are your concerns? This morning we've been speaking to organized labor, which is really adamant in its stance, saying, look, do not touch our pension funds. Now we know there's a staff-level agreement. What does this all mean? How do you interpret what's happening? What are your concerns? If you had the chance to advise government, what would it be? Well, the numbers to call 0302, Benjamin,
211-691. 0302-211-691.
I always have to
start charging you for that.
Yeah, he always has to help me out there to complete it for me. So do call us, share your thoughts with us. Meanwhile, we can share some portions of that statement with you, the one on the IMF agreement. Well, so there you have it. IMF reaches staff-level agreement on a $3 billion 3 years extended credit facility with Ghana. IMF staff and the Ghanaian authorities have reached that agreement on economic policies and reforms to be supported by a new 3-year arrangement under the extended credit facility of about $3 billion. The authorities' strong reform program aims at restoring macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while protecting the vulnerable, preserving financial stability, and laying the foundation for strong and inclusive recovery. To support the objective of restoring public debt sustainability, the authorities have launched a comprehensive debt operation, Benjamin, and that's the debt operation that the organized labor is not too excited about. It continues to say, in addition to front-loaded fiscal consolidation and measures to reduce inflation and rebuild external buffers, the program envisages wide-ranging reforms to address structural weaknesses and enhance resilience to shocks. I'll pause here, Benjamin, because you remember yesterday our conversation with Mr. Tekbe on our resilience to shocks. and how there appears to be a cycle of going back to the IMF when there are external events that, rock the world. They seem to rock Ghana harder. So we need to build some resilience to that. So we will be hearing from the Finance Ministry later. There's more on the engagement from the mission chief for Ghana and all. But it's time to get interactive with you. We'll put up the numbers there shortly so that you can share your thoughts with us.
So let's, you can call that number 0302-211-691, 0302-211-691 with your thoughts for us. What do you think about the conversations we've had today? So the TUC, then the drivers, then this IMF staff level agreement. We have Benjilo on the line. Hello, Benjilo.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to cherished listeners.
Great. What are your thoughts for us?
Yes, as a concerned citizen, a lot of things happen in this country, and it looks like we're not taking the finance ministry, as a matter of fact, serious in any way. They come tell us this, and the next second it's a different story altogether. Sometimes I feel pain inside my heart, and I feel bad as a Ghanaian. We deserve better than what we are experiencing in the country, honestly speaking. As a matter of fact, I applaud the government of the day for at least coming into an agreement, consensual agreement with the IMF. But we want the real facts out. They should be able to publish it out. We need to know what is inside our agreement. They need to come out clear for us to understand. This baffles my mind, and as a concerned citizen, I feel very bad. I don't know where we start the country. It's lies, all lies throughout. Right from the presidency, everything about. Ghana, we need to just wake up. As a serious and a concerned nation, we need to wake up to the call. I'm grateful.
Gilo. Now, let me go back. Benjamin, there's just something interesting in the concluding part of that statement from the IMF. And it indicates that there were certain meetings, IMF staff held meetings with Vice President Baumia, Finance Minister Oforiatta, and Bank of Ghana Governor Addison and their teams, as well as representatives from various government agencies. The IMF team has also continued to engage with other stakeholders. Staff would like to express their gratitude to the Ghanaian authorities, Parliament Finance Committee, and all the private sector, trade union, and civil society representatives for their open and constructive engagement over the past few months.
So I see where you're going with that, trades unions, and yet it appears. So what really happened?
Exactly. Well, we have another caller. Hello, Charles. Good morning. Let's hear you.
Hello.
Hello, Charles. We can hear you. Please go ahead with your thoughts.
Yes. So I wanted to get the details of the staff level as to whether. Hello. So I'm saying that I wanted to get the details as to the staff level, the numbers involved, as to whether the IMF agreed with the number of presidential staffers, the number of ministers, and then public sector workers, the total number of, the agreed number of people that perhaps the government can employ.
So Charles, those are not details we have yet, but a staff level agreement does not, it doesn't go into these details yet. Mind you, we've not arrived at an agreement yet. This is a staff level agreement. It's like a precedent to what we could do and get the funds that we seek. Those details about how the mechanics of it, how it will actually operate, we do not have those yet. If you read what we just put out, some of them would come on the back of what we are hoping the Finance Ministry will be revealing to us sometime today. So those details we do not have, but technically, the number of ministers and all of that, those are things that we have spoken of. Whether the IMF would go down that road, we do not know.
Well, we have John from Cape Coast. Good morning, John. Let's hear you.
Yeah, I'm John Kufo calling from Cape Coast.
Great.
Yeah, I think I stand with TUC. The TUC is a very powerful organization, and they should be resolute in whatever they want to do. the government want to exchange something, they have to first come to the table with their own exchange policy before they force exchange policy on pension funds. How can you still be keeping your number of ministers at post and you want somebody to sacrifice? Look at this. Look at this. Look at the expenditure levels. There are some, there are some projects that people have been talking about. This government, I don't know where they are taking this arrogance from. Economists have been advising you. Individual people have been advising you. Master, stop this thing. They won't listen. They want to take an entrenched position and do whatever they want to do on their own. CUC, you are powerful. If the government fails to cut down their own costs, never control to whatever they want to do. You can strike. You are powerful. And they cannot be picked for you.
Let me just find out, John. Are you a member?
Yes, I'm ending. See, the government has put embargo on employment. But the Flagstaff House, they are earning to employ more. What kind of government cry is this? Huh?
Are you a member of the TUC?
I'm not a member. I am a cocoa farmer. And I want them to do that because I have people, relatives who are also government workers who have invested in the pension fund. If that thing goes wayward, who are they going to depend? I'm going to suffer. Right. I am going to suffer because they will depend on me for my PNAT. So I have to talk now before I suffer in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John, for talking now. And Benjamin, because of the first caller's issue about the staff level agreement and what it entails, let me just run us through what the processes are. So initial steps will lead to a staff level agreement, which will spell out the technical details of the program. We're expecting to hear from the finance minister. Then a letter of intent and memorandum of economic and financial policies will be signed by the Minister for Finance and the Governor. Cabinet and Parliament will have to approve. IMF area departments, in conjunction with other departments, meaning the technical department, will also have to approve. And then we go on to the communication of executive directors and safeguard assessment mission of the BOG. So it's a process involved. But Emmanuel from the Western region joins the program. Good morning. Let's hear you, please.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, Emmanuel.
Yeah. Please, we all have some questions to put to the government. Why are they not cutting their approach according to their size and not trying to reduce their political appointments, to reduce the expenditure on the state so that they could use that money at least to cushion the running of this country? Why can they not do that, but rather touch the monies of people who are preparing for their pension? Is that also not an option, at least to tell the IMF that we are ready for them to help us? That's the question I want to put before whoever is in charge and those in the helms of affairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. It appears to be the concern for not only those who are calling in, but also the analysts and the experts, and even the TUC. Their concerns about government large expenditure and whether government itself is willing to take a part in solving the mess it created. Remember the Occupy Ghana statement also made reference to that.
And of course, just to go back, you can understand why some people are so concerned, because even in the Fourth Republic, we have experienced the HIPIC era and all of that. But when you go to the 1980s and structural adjustment and what it has meant, people have become very wary of this situation. So they want to know what is really in this. They want to get down to the bottom of it before they get hit by something unexpected.
Well, Felix from Kumasi. Hello, good morning to you, Felix.
Good morning.
What's on your mind this morning?
Yeah, good morning. I want to also contribute to the discussion.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. What will the president, Nanado, and the finance minister, what will they achieve from arrogance? What will they achieve? You see, it's because of the arrogance that we are where we are. And still they don't want to come down and let us all build the economy together. What are they going to achieve when you rule a nation and at the end of the day, you don't have any legacy? What are you going to achieve from that? What country are we running? Can they come down so that we all jojo, then we come together, then we'll build this country for ourselves and our children who are coming? It's too much. Ghanaians, let us wake up and build this country together, because it's too much. Just because of 2-3 people are putting us into this touch. What are they going to achieve from arrogance? Good morning to everybody.
Good morning to
Bye-bye.
you too, Felix. So it appears the posturing of government again is of major concern to some of our viewers and callers. Well, Benjamin, I mean...
And it's the same thing we've seen, like I said, e-levy, and people had to say, and then we organized a national dialogue on it when all of this could have been done and averted maybe some of the chaos we saw. And you know, to a certain extent, I agree with these people who are saying, wait, how can you do this without even telling us? And it's come to bear one more time as far as this debt exchange is concerned.
Well, right here in Botiano, Kwame has something to share. Hello, Kwame. Good morning. Let's hear you.
Okay. Somebody was asking, what will the government achieve? Yeah, hello. Hello. Somebody just asked that, what will the government achieve? They came to run the country down. That's their main purpose. And they are coming to fill their accounts with money so that they can hold on to power forever. That is their main aim. So if Ghanaians don't know, let me tell them.
Let me just add this, though. You say they came to run the country down, but if they run the country down, they will have nothing left to run.
They will run. They will rule the poor people. And so we cannot talk. We cannot do anything. We will be there hungry and poor, and nothing else will happen.
Okay. Kwame, thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. It's a bit of a stretch, though. I don't think any administration ever comes into office just to, how would I put it, Bernice, just to bring things to a complete halt. But sometimes the posturing. You can understand people like him who would think that, look, you sound so intransigent that whatever is said, you seem not to want to take it.
Yeah.
But I don't think any administration ever comes.
If Kwame is still on the line, though, I would like to ask why you think so. Okay, we've lost Kwame. Kwame has left. But we've got a few more minutes to take about 2 or 3 calls. So if you're at home and you also have something to share with us, or if you just joined the program, we know now that Ghana and the IMF have reached a staff-level agreement on providing an extended credit facility for 3 years. $3 billion it is. So we'll be hearing from the finance minister shortly. We were told 10 a.m. That's just about 10 minutes from now. So hopefully if the program starts on time, we'll take you there exactly at 10. Well, while we wait for your calls to come through, the Ghana Revenue Authority wishes to inform you, especially persons registered for value-added tax, that's the VAT, that the Domestic Tax Revenue Division has commenced the implementation of an electronic invoicing system of VAT referred to as EVAT. Now, this involves integrating the invoicing system of VAT registered taxpayers to the Commissioner General's invoicing system. Taxpayers who do not have an invoicing system will be required to issue invoices using GRA's certified invoicing system at no cost. VAT registered taxpayers are to note that refusal to integrate their invoicing systems with the Commissioner General's system attracts sanctions. Kindly contact GRA toll-free 0800 900 110 or via WhatsApp on these numbers 055 299 0000 or 0200 631664. Or you can send an email to the GRA for further inquiries. Well, we have our last caller, I'm told. Good morning to you, and kindly share your thoughts with us.
My name is Malta Makolon from you.
Right, please go ahead.
Yeah. Madam, I want to ask a simple question. But first of all, I have to thank JoyNews for giving us opportunities like this. Right. Madam, as we are living here in Yendi town, we don't have any food that can cut 10 cedis for you. Don Zafi and others. We are living in a country that is threatening itself for the youth. Master, you are a leader. You are doing something. They are telling you, Master, what you are doing is not good for us. Step down. Let those other people to come and join the queue, and so that the country will be better for us. Master, it's a problem. As at now, as we are calling for you, at times, some of us, when we make call, they are threatening us. That is the kind of country we are living. That is the kind of country we are living. And the question that we are always asking is, where are the men that they claim? Where are they? Well, but we are praying. Thank God, time will come. Come 2024. Good morning to all Ghanaians.
Good morning, and thanks for joining the program. Benjamin, it appears that almost every caller who called today had a question to ask.
It's interesting because today we've got a lot of questions, and I have a few on my mind as well, but I've just been thinking since morning. This isn't our first time going to the IMF, our 17th time actually. But in this Fourth Republic especially, and I'm sticking to what I have come to know properly, this is the first time I'm seeing such far-reaching consequences tied to an IMF program. It's not that we've never had debt restructuring or in some shape or form.
Or a freeze of unemployment.
But in this instance, looking at the debt exchange and what it portends and all the other dynamics, coming to play at the same time, it's a double whammy, if you like.
Well, we're just about wrapping up our show. Don't forget, at 10 a.m. we're expecting to hear from the finance minister and the IMF team that's here in Ghana. We have our men stationed there already to bring you those details. But before we go, Benjamin, we have a message.
Maybe before the message, let me just put this message out there as well, that we are expecting them at 10 a.m. Usually when it comes to the Ministry of Finance, they are not spot on when it comes to time like that. So if we don't start at 10 a.m. exactly, blame them, not us. I just had to put it out there. And I'm getting frustrated with the finance minister, and whether it's budget delivery or this or that, they never start anything when they say they would. Maka. Go ahead.
So we have a special message for you. Adum TV Festival of 9 Lessons and Carols this year is happening on Sunday, the 18th of December at the National Theatre at 7 p.m. Please, you don't want to miss this for anything. It's a rib-cracking fun reenactment about the birth of Christ from your favorite Kumawood stars, Matilda Asari, Dada Santos, Michael Afrane, Awoya, Oteli Kolege, Atemuda, Salinko, Shifo, Don Little, Wayosi, and many more. Who would play baby Jesus? Mary, the caretaker, or Joseph this time round? It's only one show featuring performances from Soul Winners, MOG, and the Ekia Atre Memorial Youth Choir. It's just 30 cedis per person to get your seat in advance. You have to use our digital sales platform. So here's how you can buy your ticket. Use the short code *713*003#. I'll say it again, *713*003# and select 1. Then select 2 Adum TV Festival of 9 Lessons and Carols to buy your ticket from the comfort of your home. It's going to be a night of fun with your favorite Adum presenters at the National Theatre of Ghana on Sunday, 18th December 2022 at 7 p.m.
Well, the sponsors helping us bring you this event: Yamvita Infant Cereal with Milk, ADB, Truly, Agric, and more, Mansoa Herbal, Jisewamma, and Franco Trading Enterprise, Phone, Papa, Any Printers, Papa Fie, Mikado Conference Center Service Unlimited, Levon 2, Feminine Wash, Stay Fresh to Impress, Calipo, Abi you know that, Midimafo Herbal Clinic, Oyarefo, with Dimafo, Nehia, CD Low Price Masters, Durable and Affordable, Tumira Herbal Center, Ayare Safi, Rockstars Roofing Systems, the key to all your roofing needs, Duffy's Health and Beauty, the Hand of God, Koa Mixture, the medicine that works, CompuGhana Passion for Technology, KFC, it's finger licking good, and Kimonsi Ventures, the pride of Africa.
Right, so from Benjamin and myself, it's goodbye for now. Thank you so much for making time to be with us. Before you go, though, Samuel Kojo-Brace is at the Finance Ministry. We told you we are there. So Samuel is there for us to bring us the latest. You will see him shortly on your screens. Hello, Samuel. What are you able to tell us? Are we having the Finance Minister start this press conference exactly at 10? Right, so Samuel Kojo-Brace will be bringing us more shortly, but for now it's goodbye from Benjamin and myself. Thank you so much for making time every morning to join us. We are grateful that you could do so. Benjamin, you can smell Christmas, can you?
Smell it not yet for two reasons. I think the economy, and secondly, my nose is clogged. So...
Right, on that rather interesting note, it's goodbye from us. Take care, Tuesday. News Desk is up next.